The story begins with the fact that on the prosperous mainland of Kyushu, at the end of the mountain range of the southern region, there is a mystical place. There were 5 clans of immortals on the mainland, one of which was the Manhwa clan. Only monks who have mastered the foundation period and above can enter and exit these places with ease. An example of such can be Lu Chuan, who has already mastered the period of laying the foundations and is rich in experience. He is a time traveler. This is a young guy with long hair and a white robe. The guy is a disciple of the Manhwa clan. His gaze is often stern, but he himself is decisive and serious. The young man has yellow eyes, in which one can often notice composure and complete calm in difficult situations. Lu Chuan completed daily tasks in the clearing, while also improving his skills. The young man deftly swung his sharp blade, emitting a blue color when struck. There were dense green trees around. Finally, the fencing training was completed. Character experience and creativity have increased, along with the level of fencing itself. In total, Li Chuan has been traveling around this world for about 2 years. The guy had a broom instead of a blade in his hands. Luckily, it has a system bar to help you navigate here. She provides him with daily tasks. By completing daily tasks, the young man can gain experience in order to subsequently improve himself. He received a notification from the system that his current experience was enough to ascend. The question was asked whether he wished to move to a new stage. Lu Chuan needs to follow the rules and requirements to successfully advance to the next level. There are no limits here. But the only strange thing was that despite increasing the character's level, cultivation would progress more slowly. He only has Chi refinement rank 4. The system panel displayed his real combat power. He managed to make a breakthrough, but daily tasks alone will not be enough. In any case, if the young man cannot break through to the next stage, then all his efforts will be meaningless. A woman's scream was heard from behind the forest. The woman shouted to the student that it was time to cook. Lu Chuan's eyes widened. At that same second, he turned around and began running headlong towards his mentor, shouting that he was already on his way to her. While the young man was running, in his thoughts he wondered what would be the best thing for him to cook today. Suddenly, the young man seemed to have an epiphany. He almost forgot something. His eyes were bulging. Already in the palace, he abruptly stopped, while firmly stamping his foot on the asphalt. Stopping, the guy put his hand in front of him and shouted forward with a serious face. He stood confidently on his feet. All these gestures were the fulfillment of another daily task, namely, the shaping task. The system notified Lu that the daily task had been successfully completed. They gained character experience as well as shaping experience. From behind, a female voice told Lu Chuan that all his actions were quite good. The guy turned around in surprise. It was Elder Lu Muan. With all the praise, she asked who he should defend against in the Manhwa clan. Lu Chuan got angry and turned to his mentor, intending to explain everything to her. A trembling ran through the girl's body. The guy began to talk about the troubles of their clan throughout history, and Muan began to leave and said that she knew about all this and would not interfere anymore. But when leaving, she urgently asked him to remember that he should not get into any trouble. She added that otherwise, she simply would not have any students left. Lu listened carefully to his mentor. He asked her not to worry and said that he would modify the formation so that no incidents would happen. Lu Muan asked the student to hurry up and cook. The young man replied with a smile that he was already on his way. After some time, the young man asked his mentor what she wanted, hot pot or food on skewers. The mentor asked for some light food, since it has been a bit hot lately. The guy asked what exactly she wanted. The yellow-eyed boy realized that his mentor was ill, and therefore it was time to show his medical skills. He cautiously approached her and began to check her pulse, saying that she must be in pain. With a thoughtful but serious face, the guy asked his mentor if she had been poisoned by something. Lu Muan was a little embarrassed, but answered the student with a smile that she was fine. In her thoughts, she said that he was too attentive. The young man looked at the system board, where it was written that the daily task for training medical skills had been completed. The young man opened the box and asked the mentor to take an anti-poisoning pill. She asked why, because she was just hot. But the concerned student loudly told her that this was just in case. The mentor did not understand why he was giving her so many pills. Lu said that the pills have different effects, some, for example, against paralysis, others can even remove snake venom. He asked his mentor if she wanted him to prepare fruit-flavored tablets for her. Lu Muan thought for a few seconds and replied that in that case, she would like a peach-flavored pill. The young man handed her the pills and said that these pills would help remove all the negativity from the body. Muan said that she felt that sometimes he acted as an elder. Lu said that she was inventing too much for herself. After a while, it became dark outside, but Lu Chuan did not sleep. Birds flew in flocks under the turquoise night sky. The young man said in his thoughts that if his mentor had not saved him one day, he would have died long ago. There are many ways to complete tasks, but he wants to show her as much respect as possible. The young man brought dinner to his mentor and said that she was supposed to be on a diet. Muan said that his skill is getting better every time. The student put dinner on the table and smiled at the mentor, saying that he was glad that she was happy. Lu Chuan was happy because the mentor was pleased with the dinner. His skill is not in vain. She succumbed to the spell of the law of sense. The young man also asked if she would like to give her dirty clothes to be washed, to which she kindly agreed. The young disciple went to Lu Muan's room to get dirty things, while the teacher sipped a strong drink. But at one moment the guy's words reached her. She spat out her drink, screaming about her dirty clothes. The girl jumped up and ran after the student, screaming and asking him to stop. The young man did not understand what was going on. In the girl's room there was her underwear. The young man was organizing her things, looking excitedly into her eyes. The girl couldn't tell him what was wrong. She nervously said that he had done a very good job today, so he could leave the laundry to her. The student asked why she shouldn't rely on him, because she was very tired, but Lu replied that doing laundry brings 100 experience points, and she needs it. She continued to nervously say that she knew he respected her very much, but these were her personal things and she preferred to wash them herself. But the yellow-eyed student asked the mentor not to be modest, and it was better to leave this matter to him. But the girl angrily pulled the thing onto herself, shouting and asking if this fool really doesn't understand what personal things are. Lu Chuan scratched the back of his head and said that the teacher was too shy. The girl's face turned red from discomfort. Nothing ever reached the young man. In his thoughts, he tried to understand what was wrong with this, and why she didn't want him to wash her things. Lu Chuan couldn't understand why she was so shy, because she was a representative of the Golden Core period, and she was already over 100 years old. The mentor said loudly that in any case, she would wash her clothes herself, and asked him not to touch anything. The young man's face was upset after these words. Lu Muan wondered if her refusal really upset him that much. She said that in 2 or 3 years he will come out into the world and become quite an adult, so he should already think about finding his soul mate. But Lu Chuan confidently answered her that he was only concerned about improvement. There could be no talk of any couple. The mentor said that she understood everything, that he realized that if he found a mate, he would lose the ability to complete daily tasks. The teacher asked me to focus on cultivation. To herself, she said that her student was in everything, be it alchemy, education, fencing and even cooking. But cultivation is not so easy for him. After all this time, he is only at the 4th rank of Qi refinement. She said in her thoughts that if he continues like this, after 100 years, whether he will be able to live will be a big question. Lu said that he is trying very hard to cultivate. Due to his youth, his progress is not as good as hers, but in the future everything will work out. Lu Muan didn't want his talent to be buried. She doesn't like watching him try at all. She didn't know what to do. The young man said that it was not a fact that he could achieve immortality. Death is a normal phenomenon. Lu asked if he was putting off training. But the yellow-eyed young man with a twinkle in his eyes replied that he only postpones it when he can help her with something. After his words, the mentor was stunned. There was surprise in her eyes and her face turned a little red. For some time she silently looked into his eyes. The young man asked his mentor what was wrong with her face. Was she really sick? The girl looked into his eyes with her mouth open. At one point she shouted and asked where the cold came from. She is in her golden core period, so this simply cannot be. After some time, a conversation took place between the mentor and the student. It was already completely dark outside. Lu Muan asked the student if he was ready for the clan competition, which would take place in a month. Lu Chuan replied that with his current strength he would not achieve success, so it was better to wait for the qi to be completely purified. The young man did not want to take part. In his thoughts, he told himself that rewards are not so important. The only thing that matters is that you cannot lose experience, and the rest is not so important. Muon said to herself in her mind that the main reward for the competition is something that many have never even dreamed of, so Lu Chuan had better at least try. The young man was reading the system panel. There was a note on it that the reward for this task would depend only on his abilities. The young man's deep yellow eyes opened wide in surprise as the system came to life. The guy immediately exclaimed joyfully and told the mentor that he would participate. Muon asked if he didn't say the opposite. Luan asked who besides him could take the prize, but the teacher asked if he was not the only student. Lu continued to rejoice in silence. She asked him not to set her up, and to give it his all, since he so wanted to participate in the competition. But the guy with a sparkle in his eyes asked the mentor not to worry, and said that with his 4th rank of chi purification, he was invincible. The mentor told the student that he needed to prepare a lot. She asked him not to sit idle, time was running out. She began to fly away and finally asked him to prepare well. The student promised with a smile that everything would be fine. While flying, Lu Muon thought and said in her mind that she would definitely help him advance in cultivation. Her flight speed increased tenfold. She confidently said that she would not leave it all like that. The next day, Lu Chuan received a notification from the system that he had received a random gift set. He immediately decided to activate it. A few seconds later the system processed the request. The gift set began to open. The young man was in anticipation. He received the Fantastic Space Sutra. The system congratulated the young man on receiving such a gift. A spark of joy appeared in the young man's eyes. Because this was the highest attribute, he couldn't believe it. Lu said that since he got an attribute of this level, after all, they all come from the reserves of the Lanhua clan. The young man was very interested and surprised. He realized that he could create illusions through disguise. Even though he cultivated quite slowly, thanks to this sutra he would be able to at least create the illusion of an increased rank. And therefore, those who are below his level are not his rivals. If the mentor knew that everything was solved so easily, she definitely wouldn't worry. Elder Lu, meanwhile, was at Baichao Peak. From there, beautiful mountain scenery opened up. The woman asked the elder to wait, because she needed to report her arrival, but they immediately said that she could pass. The woman bowed her head respectfully, and Lu Muon silently and confidently moved forward. She wore a long, light-colored dress that trailed across the luxurious red carpets of the estate. A female voice from behind the white curtains asked the elder why she had come. The girl simply remained silent. The head of Baichao Peak, Fong Hongwen, came out from behind the curtains. She is the mistress of Baichao Hall. Fan asked if she really came again because of her student. Sitting at the table, Fong Hongwen told Muon that her student was nothing special despite his ability in medicine. But the girl, with a trembling voice, turned to her sister, intending to tell her something. The sister was surprised. With tears in her eyes, she said that she believed her, but could not leave everything like that. Hongwen was already familiar with this situation. Muon said that he took a magic pill, but it did not have the desired effect. The girl asked if there was any reason for this. Fong said that the pill is an elixir that can help cultivators break through from the golden core period to yuanying. It can be called a treasure. Lu immediately told Sister Hongwen that she could improve the pill, and it would not be difficult for her. The girl suggested trying to do this. The sister told her that she valued her student very much, but cultivating immortality was a path against heaven. She may be punished for this later. She also grabbed Muon's cheek and said that besides, she was too attached to her student, but the girl said that she herself understood this. But with pain she said that no matter what, she didn't want him to live like this. The girl begged her sister to come up with something. Tears began to flow down her cheeks, fear was visible in her eyes, and her cheeks turned red. The sister silently looked into her eyes. The girl's face was very cute and Sister Hongwen admitted it to herself. She understood that she would have to help. She agreed to help, but immediately warned that she would be offended if Muon gave the student another pill. The girl was immediately happy. After some time, the girls were sitting on the porch of the estate. The sky was emerald, and the rays of the sun illuminated the earth. Fan told Wan Er that although the pill did not have the desired effect, it was not useless. Her student is one of those who find it very difficult to advance. Muon asked Sister Hongwen what she wanted to say to all of this. There was excitement in her eyes. The sister asked if the girl thought that in reality her student's abilities were not so bad, and he was simply hiding his strength. Wan Er said that this cannot be. Hongwen asked how a chi refinement period cultivator could ignore the effect of the pill. The girl answered her that that is why she said that something wrong was happening to her student. Hongwen said there was only one thing left to do. Suddenly, a female voice told Elder Yu, who had appeared, that her arrival must first be reported. But the elder told the servants that she urgently needed to meet with Elder Fong and asked them not to block the path. Lanhua clan elder Yu Lingzhao came with her disciple Ling Yaning. She asked Lu Muan what she was doing here. The servants apologized to the elder for not being able to stop them. Fan said that there was nothing to be done. Lingzhao boastfully introduced her student. She said that in 2 years she mastered fencing at the age of 16. But the girls ignored her statements. At that very moment, with an angry cry, she asked if they were really deaf and who she was even talking to. Disciple Yanbing told Elder Fong that she came here to ask for a restoration pill. The elder asked worriedly if she was really injured. The girl replied that today she went to get the sword, but ran into trouble. The elder examined the blade and said that it looked familiar. Muan wondered if this was really a blade of icy rain. Fan began to say that the Lanhua clan had existed for more than 1,000 years, and in its history there was only one memorable woman. That girl defeated her enemies, but her cultivation was at stake. She is known not only for her personality, but also for her blade, and her name is Yu Xian. Hongwen said that she didn't think that after 200 years, the ice rain blade would recognize someone as its owner. He is the most difficult in the entire clan. Yu Lingzhao said that recognition is not everything, she needs to fully master it. Besides, he didn't fully acknowledge her. She said that she was sure that her student would still bring glory to their clan, but Yanbing just stood there silently. Yu asked Elder Lu why not try it, because perhaps the blade would recognize her as its owner. Muan answered with a smile that she could try, but she didn't want to. Lingzhao asked what was the matter, was she really hiding something? Sounds began to be heard from the blade. Disciple Yanbin asked for silence, and her teacher turned her attention to the blade. The student said that Shuang was speaking, and the teacher asked who it was. The girl replied that this is the name of the blade that is trying to speak. Ling Zhao immediately became angry and exclaimed for the blade spirit to come out immediately. She asked how he dared to harm her student. Fan asked if she had forgotten the purpose of her visit. You remembered that she wanted to ask for a pill. She said she would soon pull herself together. Hongwen told Yanbing that she was told that she had no problems taking medications, but the drugs were very rare. The girl asked if there were enough of them. Ling Zhao asked the elder not to worry, and to tell him what was missing, and they would get everything. She added that the price of the ingredients is not important. She received the check and, with her mouth open, began to read the prices of the ingredients. Disciple Yanbing thanked Elder Fong. As she left, Yu exclaimed that it was very expensive. Hongwen said from the porch that it was a lot, of course, but nothing could be done, and wished them success. Fan hit Muan on the head and asked why she laughs at others when she cannot solve her own problems. Sister Hongwen said that it was not that they had no solution to her problem. Her face was thoughtful. Lu Muan looked into her sister's eyes and asked if this was true. At that moment she was extremely interested. Yu Lingzhao and disciple Yanbing were leaving the grounds of Elder Fong's estate. It was already starting to get dark outside. She said that she was leaving. The elder did not want to help her, but Muan was happy to do so. She called it meanness on Lu Muan's part. Lu Chuan performed daily tasks. He tried to remember the name of the pill that his mentor asked him to take. It dawned on him and he remembered that it was a spirit transformation pill. This pill is highly prized, so it's good that he has it. The young man swallowed the pill and said that as soon as he reached the 5th level in alchemy, he would immediately help his mentor. Lu Muan asked her sister with great surprise whether something could help identify Li Chuan's anomalies. She said that the hidden Yaowan clan is capable of this, but not everyone is ready to contact him, and they won't be able to come either. Hongwen told her sister that they had no other choice, therefore, the clan conference is their last option. She decided to go a little off topic and asked Lu Muan how she could evaluate her medical skills. The girl answered her sister with a smile that she thought she was one of the top 3 on the Shaoqing continent. Fan said that she was still far from reaching the Yaowan clan. She added that it would not be an exaggeration to say that this clan had no equal in the entire Qian country. Muan said that even if they couldn't help Lu Chuan's cultivation, then she didn't know what to do next. Fan asked her not to worry. She also said that they would also check to see if another pill could affect Lu Chuan since the transformation spirit pill did not help. Lu turned around and left saying that she would go to the head and ask to invite a member of the Yaowan clan. Hongwen said that it was too late to go anywhere. She invited the girl to relax with her, and tomorrow she will hit the road with renewed vigor. Lu looked into her eyes with slight surprise. She agreed to stay, but told Sister Hongwen that she still wanted to go. The girl seemed embarrassed to say something. Fan grabbed her hand and said she didn't want to hear any buts. She said it had been a long time since they kept secret. Muan asked her sister why her bed smelled so delicious. The sister replied that she could give her the same one. It was already deep night outside, the bright moon illuminated the earth, and a large number of stars helped her in this. Lu Chuan stood on a high hill, looking into the distance where high mountains could be seen. He took in the fresh air and silently enjoyed the beauty of the night. The system notified the guy that the percentage of enjoyment of the moon increased by tens of %. But when the pleasure reached almost 100%, the moon began to be covered by clouds approaching it, as a result of which the pleasure was interrupted. The young man decided not to let the clouds interrupt his enjoyment of the moon. He used magic. With the power of magic, he pushed the clouds away, and his daily task of pleasing the moon was completed. The young man was scrolling through the system in order to collect the reward he received for completing the daily task. Lu Chuan received a thing called Void Fantasy as a reward for completing the task. Incomprehensibility can cause the effect of insight, significantly increasing the effectiveness of various practices. Fantasies of emptiness were received by a young man. He sat in a meditation position and closed his eyes to gain energy. Lu Chuan smiled and said to himself that it was time to try out this new technique of this level. The system notified that the practice of the 4th rank of Qi purification had begun. The young man was completely focused. The young man smiled and clenched his fist and said that he had almost completed the period of Qi purification. As soon as its changes become too drastic, it will not lead to good. He believed that even Lu Muan did not make such rapid progress. Fantasies of emptiness represent 3 stages. The first to look at a mountain is a mountain, to look at water is water, the second to look at a mountain is not a mountain, and to look at water is not water. With each level of cultivation, major changes will occur. According to his current progress, he needs to move to the next stage. There are 30 days left until the clan conference. The young man noticed that it was already late, and the mentor had not yet returned. He began to wonder what she was doing now. The guy suggested that she might be drinking or doing something else. The next day, the clan head scolded Lu Muan. He asked if it was too much trouble on her part, and she knew how busy he was. He shouted that he had neither the time nor the opportunity to search for her. The head of the clan, Zhang Yufeng, was very strict. Lu Muan looked into his eyes angrily and asked why he didn't just want to try. The head shouted that this was too frivolous. The girl said that she didn't have many students, so she would go on the search herself. Fong Hongwen asked why she was leaving if she promised to help Lu Chuan with all her might. Muan replied that she would have to act herself. Zhang Yufeng stated that she had given the most important pill to her disciple, and if she did not stop behaving like this, there would be no problem. He started shouting that she was useless. With a shout, he also asked why she shouldn't invest her energy in her own development, rather than protecting her student. Muan replied that if she wanted, she could quickly overcome the Golden Core period and break through to Yuanying. The head said that if that's what she wants, then fine, but she should remember that one of Yaowan's rules is that others do not need to be saved. This did not stop Lu Muan, and she said that she would not only be able to meet with the clan, but also remain in her position. Fong Hongwen looked at her with a smile, and in her thoughts said that no one could have thought that she was so persistent and ready to do anything for her goal. The evil head disturbed her thoughts and asked why she was standing. Didn't she have her own business to do? The girl did not argue with the head of the clan, and simply calmly replied that she was already leaving. She walked forward calmly. After the girls left, the head of the clan asked how long Yu Lingzhao was going to hide, since they had already left. The girl immediately came out of hiding, quietly saying that she knew it. At that moment she was thoughtful. The red-haired girl said that Lu Muan came for her disciple after all. The head looked at her emotionlessly from behind. With a smile, he asked his sister if he understood correctly that she was dissatisfied with Elder Lu's disciple, because her tone gave her away. Yu Lingzhao asked in response why she should be dissatisfied with him if he is not her student, and she doesn't even know him. But the head of the clan realized that she was not telling the story. He asked why she spied if she didn't care about them. After these words, the girl became extremely angry. With a very loud cry, she asked who else was spying here. She grabbed the head of the clan by the face and said that she came to talk to him, and nothing more than that. The head was sweating from nerves. Very worried, he asked Sister Yu Lingzhao what she thought about the Yaowang clan. Tears and sweat were streaming down his face. She said that her father said that the lord of the clan is composed of various medicines and has great strength. It must be in the Mahayana period. The head said that even he is far from the Mahayana stage. You said that a new gifted elder had appeared there, and he would definitely help Lu Chuan. Yu Feng asked if she thought he had low ability. The girl replied that she had been following him for 2 years, and he was developing very slowly. Then she warned Lu Muan about his low abilities, but she disobeyed and also gave her a pill, which led to the opposite effect. Zhang asked if she wanted to help her, but the girl replied that she didn't care about Muan's students, and besides, she wouldn't be able to find anyone in a month. The head asked, in that case, where she was in a hurry. Ling Zhao replied that he had a lot to do, so she had to go. She said that for the Muan disciple, all is not lost if they can still turn to the elder of the Yaowang clan. At that very moment she disappeared from the horizon. The head, looking into the distance, said that she says one thing, but does something completely different. A week later, Lu Chuan was sitting in a clearing. In just 7 days, he managed to increase the void fantasy rank. He was curious about what Elder Lu had been doing all these days. The guy was sorry that they couldn't see each other every day. The young man also hoped that the mentor did not go for new pills. The daily task of practicing the craft was completed. Lu Chuan put the blank in his pocket. He said that the teacher had communicated with representatives of Baichao Peak, so he needed to ask about it. Suddenly, a foggy silhouette appeared in front of the young man, flying from afar. The guy became wary. It turned out that it was Lu Muan's mentor. The young man exclaimed joyfully that she had finally returned and asked where she had been. The mentor replied that she went to other clans and didn't have much time, so she couldn't leave a message. She said that she had heard about a new method that would help him with cultivation. The young man told himself that she was tired and it was his fault. The guy was very worried because he was trying to muster up the courage to confess everything to his mentor. But he decided to remain silent, because if she found out that he was deceiving her, she could be traumatized. Lu was determined to hold back. The teacher smiled sweetly at the student and, placing her hand on his shoulder, said that she was a little tired and wanted to rest. The girl began to leave, and the upset Lu Chuan looked at the floor, saying that he was very sorry. He felt lousy at heart. It was deep night outside. The moon wasn't too bright, so the night wasn't that bright. Teacher Lu Muan was stunned that her disciple had prepared such a wonderful dinner for her. She said his skills are getting better and better. The young man thanked her for the compliment. Lu Chuan told his mentor that in fact, he not only practices cooking, but also cultivates. Muan drew attention to the guy, and at that very moment he decided to demonstrate his abilities to her. In extreme surprise, the girl dropped her chopsticks. With her mouth open, she exclaimed that this was the 5th rank of qi refining. Lu began to ask how he had progressed in his cultivation. Lu Chuan said that a lot of practice helped him in his advancement. The mentor was very happy and inspired. She asked the student if he could continue practicing. Lu Muan said that despite breathing, his energy makes itself felt. This is the true 5th rank of qi refining. Lu said he has a feeling he can go even further. The teacher was surprised and asked if he really had premonitions. Lu Chuan said that perhaps the pills she gave him earlier had worked. Apparently, the accumulation effect played a role. Lu Muan said in her thoughts that the last pill seemed to have no effect at all. Looks like she had delayed action. She suggested going to Baichao Peak so that the elder could inspect it. The young man began to nervously refuse, because he understood that he would not deceive her. He said that he wants to maintain his position, because he may not live up to the expectations of others. Lu said in her thoughts that in a way, he was right. She agreed with him and said that if any changes occur to his body, he should immediately report. The guy asked the mentor for dishes on the table, which he personally prepared for her with a pure heart. The aromas attracted the girl. A huge ship was hovering in the sky. It looked like it was made of durable wood. People below were watching him. Many looked at the huge ship with their mouths open in surprise, not understanding how it could be in the sky. The ship slowly flew over the city. It was equipped with a huge mast. A flock of birds flew after him. One of the men on the ship asked another if this was the Lanhua clan. he said that Lanhua Peak is the same as their clan's territory. Chi Siyuan said laughingly that among the 5 major clans, Lanhua occupies the most extensive territory, along the ridge from south to north. He also said that despite all the greatness of the Lanhua clan, its landscapes cannot be compared with theirs. The 2 robed men said that there is no better clan than the Lingi clan. One of the men asked who these people below were and why there were so many of them. Another replied that many are mere mortals who long for immortality. The man said that it was useless, because none of them would be able to advance anyway, ever. But the other man asked him not to say that. On top of the ship sat a man with a long, sharp chin, who smiled while looking down. His eyes were closed and he stuck out his very long tongue, indicating that he was very hungry. After some time, the ship moored at the walls of the estate, where competitions will take place over time. The Lanhua clan's Kanjian Peak elder, Su Zhen, said that they had arrived too early as the clan competition was still 2 days away. Chi Siyuan said with a smile that he only wanted to get to know him better and find out if there were any interesting treasures. The people on the ship asked everyone to pay attention. One of them pointed his finger at the mountain and asked if this was not the mountain of the blade. The others exclaimed that it was she. A bald man who was with Elder Su Zhen jumped onto the asphalt from above. He landed firmly on his feet, continuing to stand confidently on them. The 2 guys opened their mouths in surprise. Disciple Duan Hai exclaimed, "The Blade Mountain represents the appearance of the eternal blade that their ancestor left behind." People admired the appearance of the blade. Su asked Chi for forgiveness for her student's antics, but Siyuan said it was nothing. Duan asked the guy with the long tongue if he had any questions, to which he replied that he was delighted with the clan's former strength. It was Zhou Yutian from the Lingi clan. He asked Kai to introduce him to the genius of their clan, about whom he had heard so much. The youth supported him, and with a twinkle in their eyes asked Brother Duan where this genius was. They really wanted to meet him. The young man scratched the back of his head and replied that he could not help them because he did not know this man. The guy said that geniuses should not be disturbed. Duan said that he could ask for them if they wanted, but he could not give any guarantees. Yutian expressed hope of meeting the genius. Hai promised to do everything in his power. Zhou expressed great gratitude to the guy, and the 2 guys joined him. Yutian was not going to leave it to chance, and began to think about where he should look for genius. Duan invited the guys to follow him. Zhou called it all fascinating, sticking out his long tongue and resting his huge blade on his shoulder. After a while, everyone gathered at the Lanhua clan's estate, namely Baiyue Peak. The head of the clan was about to give a speech. The leader stated that he had gathered them all today to discuss the upcoming opening of the secret kingdom. He said that they defended their lands for a long time, but the time has come to open their gates, because holders of the rank of the Golden Core will be able to enter the kingdom. Elder Gu Hong asked the chief whether he really wanted to give spiritual beads as the main reward. He added that they were given to them by the first head. They contain all the great achievements and should only be used by the heads. The head smiled lightly and with sweat on his face replied that they retained the sense of creation inherent in their ancestors. Everyone present was very surprised. Many immediately asked if this was true, if the insides of their ancestors had been preserved in them. The head tried to get out of the situation. He began to say that the ancestor was a great swordsman, whom they were very far from. Gu Hong guessed that there was unlikely to be an experienced swordsman among their generation. Ling Zhao said that no one can compare to her student. Elder Gu immediately turned his attention to her and asked her with a serious face if it was true. Su Zhen asked if the decision to take spiritual beads as the main reward was too hasty, since the consequences were unknown. Ling Zhao said that they all need to have more faith in her student. The elders said that this was also true. One of them said that in this case you don't have to worry about the beads. You asked if there was anyone else who could get the beads. The man said that Elder Yu's disciple was excellent, and wished in advance a clean and easy victory in the competition. The girl said that even without this she knows that victory will be hers. The head said that he had already made a decision about the beads. He asked each and every one to perform their duties more carefully during the visiting period. After a while, the head nervously asked Ling Zhao if her student was sure she could handle it. The girl said she didn't think he was worried about it. She asked her brother not to worry and assured that her student would definitely be able to take the lead in the competition. Ling Zhao added that her student is already in the middle stage of laying the foundations. The head, having calmed down slightly, said that for her it would be as easy as shelling pears. He said that in this case he would not ask any more questions. The girl asked what about searching. Zhang Yufeng scratched his head as he didn't know how to respond. He asked his sister if she had any ideas. Yu Lingzhao immediately became angry and screamed and asked him why the hell he still hadn't thought of anything. But at one point she turned her evil gaze to the right, as if an idea had suddenly appeared in her head. The head nervously said that he didn't know where to run, because there was so much around. The girl saw Lu Muan's name on the sign. Duan Hai, meanwhile, was giving a tour to the young disciples at Shaozhu Peak. Hua Tao was delighted by the beauty of the peak. Hai told Zhou that he had been attracted to him for a long time. Yutian replied that he wanted to find a place to rest, but did not think that such scenery would open here. Hua Tao wondered why no one had built a mansion here. Duan said that there is one, but there is an elderly woman living here and her house is small. The young people immediately rushed to the woman, because they really wanted to get to know her. Hai exclaimed that it was forbidden to go there. The young people immediately stopped and in surprise asked the guy the reason why they couldn't go there. Duan said that there are many traps hidden here. She doesn't want anyone to bother her. If they just show up like that, no one will be happy with them. Zhou Yutian licked his lip with his long tongue, mentally telling himself that this sounded very interesting. He said that he came here for the experience, and wanted to look at different clans and compete with them. Young students supported his opinion. Duan Hai began to get nervous. He said that he would wait for them for an hour. If they did not return, he would go to the elder. Lu Chuan saw a strange movement on a hill far away from him. This alarmed the young man a little. The young man began to work out a strategy. Looking at the actions of the students of the other clan, he said that they were acting too recklessly. Lu Chuan was drawing up a plan based on chessboard tactics. He tried to predict the opponent's next steps. Subsequently, he decided that it was on them that he would test his new formation. This idea seemed great to him. The faces of the opponents at that moment were stunned, because they did not understand what was happening. Lu had no intention of letting them go. He just wanted to check a few things on them. The young man diligently continued to test the new formation. He decided to use the hidden flag. Lu Chuan also said that it was time to give them some gifts. The young man's illusion count had changed since he entered the game, namely, it was divided into several categories. These were the golden tree, fire, water and earth. As soon as a person steps on the formation he left behind, then at that very moment he finds himself in an endless circle of illusions. Where the curious trio ended up, Yutian shouted that it was all an illusion. Lu said that they were unlucky, because they ended up in a very complex formation, but not all disciples of the Lingyi clan are weaklings. There are also capable ones. The young man decided that he needed to try something else on them. If he succeeds, they will have a hard time. But it wasn't his fault, because it was he who had to be more careful, not him. The trio fell into a trap again. The stone floor on which Zhou Yutian was standing collapsed. The man immediately fell straight under the water. He was out of breath, but he said to himself in his thoughts, but none of this was real, and he only fell into an ominous illusion. When he almost fell to the seabed, he told himself that he should not give up and must fight to the end. Yutian clenched his teeth tightly and angrily began to remove his sharp blade from the holster. He was determined to fight to the end. He began to deftly swing his sword from side to side, preventing his illusionary opponents from destroying him. The opponents surrounded the man again. Yutian felt uneasy at that moment, but he continued to hold the sword tightly in his hands. He took a breath and, gathering his strength again, screamed in anger. He was ready to fight to the end. Opponents flew at him in herds, but he was boldly ready to repel each of them, without bending under anyone. But there were still a large number of opponents, and one in the field is not a warrior. They knocked the sword out of Yutian's hands. The demons grabbed him tightly, not allowing him to move or resist them. Zhou was motionless. The yellow-eyed water dragon looked sternly into his eyes. Gradually approaching him, the man began to scream with all his might. Duan Hai, sitting on a hill, said that he warned them not to go there. Just last week this already happened. One of the students who fell into the illusion shouted with tears that the death of brother Duan was very tragic. Hai was shocked. The young man held the log in his hands, bursting into tears and shouting that he was very sorry. If he had known that this would happen, he would not have dragged him into the water. Duan said that this guy is very bad. If everything continues in the same spirit, he will no longer be able to distinguish reality from illusion. He immediately shouted his name, and shouted that he was accompanying the disciples of the Lingi clan on an excursion when they suddenly fell under the influence of an illusion. He continued to shout that he needed help in disbanding the system, because he really wanted to help them. But the young man did not receive any answer. He decided that, apparently, he would have to contact the elders. But unexpectedly, a cry came from somewhere asking that this be the first and last time. The trio fell to the ground. Duan Hai rubbed his sweaty face and expressed great gratitude for the kindness with a smile. After some time, the trio woke up and began to rave. Hai told them that they were under the influence of an illusion, and he asked someone to stop it. One of the students hugged him and began to thank him with tears. He asked where his brother was looking. Yutian admitted that this formation was impressive, and he didn't even realize that he was in an illusion. Then he tried to break the connection with the formation, but only spent the remaining energy. There was no one around, but he failed to destroy the formation. Zhou asked if he deserved to meet with the elder, because he had been to Shaozhu Peak and was truly imbued with the formation he fell into. Disciple Hua excitedly asked him not to even think, because they had already insulted her when they came without an invitation, which is why they ended up in the formation. But after these words, Zhou Yutian literally went berserk. He clenched his teeth tightly in rage, and his eyes were full of anger. The student asked if his brother was okay. Zhou managed to restrain the outburst of anger, and at that very moment he calmly exhaled. He replied with a smile that everything was fine. He was just a little tired and said that he would be back first. The student asked how he was, to which Ho told him that Zhou was not fully awake. Duan said that it was better not to mess with the people from Shaozhu Peak. Walking forward, Yutian became very angry, asking him in his thoughts if he really went out hunting like that. He told himself that he received the beating from the victim. Lu Chuan, meanwhile, watched his furious face through the system, thinking about something. He realized that it was Zhou Yutian from the Lingi clan. He definitely has secrets, but they have nothing to do with him. The young man saw a ball on the horizon and immediately rejoiced, because it was his mentor who had finally returned. The girl landed on a wooden boat, which was in the middle of an emerald lake. Someone was already waiting for her on a wooden boat. The girl moved slowly around the boat so as not to rock it. Lu Muan looked gorgeous, and her red eyes sparkled. She had perfectly soft skin. The girl remembered Lu Chuan. 2 days later, the clan competition finally began. The heads of all clans acted as the jury. Yu Feng asked Siyuan if he thought there were any promising students here, to which he replied that he had heard about a bald guy named Duan. One of the elders said that his disciple had achieved results recently, so he was happy that he entered the top 16. Qi asked if the disciple from Shaozhu Peak would become the dark horse in their competition. The man said that Elder Lu's disciple is very talented. Siyuan asked the head what this meant, to which he replied that he had heard that Lu Chuan would also take part in the competition. He added that then Qi would know what this dark horse, as he put it, was. Lu Chuan thoughtfully read the information from the system panel. The first task was to register for the competition, for which he would receive a skill book. The task was completed, and the young man received a book of skills and experience. He was awarded 10,000 points, and his fencing level was almost 6th. You didn't need much experience up to level 6. The young man said that he needed this 6th level of fencing. The system notified Lu Chuan that the task was key. The guy realized that then it would be impossible to restart the task. But this did not stop him, because it was clearly too late to retreat. Lu was afraid that his 8th rank might not be enough, but he had nowhere to go. The students asked if everyone in the Lanhua clan had such an epic start. The man said that we are talking about entering the secret kingdom, so you need to try. One of the students admiringly asked the man to repeat what he had said, but he said that he would never do that. The young guy with yellow eyes looked around and said to himself that today a lot of people came to watch the competition. He said in his thoughts that spiritual beads were a good thing, but they wouldn't do him any good. He also looked at Zhou Yutian and said to himself that his energy was disordered, as if he was practicing demonic techniques. The young man became curious if they all sensed something was wrong. He raised his head up to look at the sky. The people who were watching the scene from the stands immediately turned their attention to the stage because something was happening there. One of the students wondered with particular surprise whether this was the same student from Shaozhu Peak. Di Jingguan was declared the winner. The man doubted because he had not seen this student. The student said that even he could not stand it. Lu Chuan wondered if that was too rude. the disciple told the man that Duan Hai from their clan was also strong, and it was he who saved them. He also added that if it weren't for him, they would have hung up their skates long ago. Yutian listened nervously to their conversation. The man said that he had heard that the disciple from Shaozhu Peak had been in the qi refining stage for 2 years. He called the guy a black sheep. He said that the guy clearly did not dare to take part in the competition. Yutian was upset because he wanted to know more about him. But suddenly, Lanhua clan disciple Lu Xiuza burst into the conversation, asking if they were talking about Li Chuan. He also said that he knew him. He said that the guy consumes a lot of resources, but is practically incapable of anything, and if not for his mentor, he would have been expelled long ago. He walked up to Lu Chuan, whose presence no one knew, and asked if he was right. The man wondered who it was. Xiuza continued, saying that Lu was given many pills, but he never showed good results. He will have to find his soulmate. One of the men said that he had heard that before joining their clan, Chuan got into trouble, from which Lu pulled him out. The teacher asked them not to talk so much. Xiuza asked not to justify his wastefulness. Lu told the guy that he looked very familiar. It was announced that the next battle would be between the 107th and the 451st. Lu Chuan took off his hood, confidently saying that it was finally his turn to fight. Xiujia looked at him arrogantly. He saw the light when it dawned on him that it was Lu Chuan. His eyes widened in surprise at that moment. Everyone around him was stunned as Lu Chuan stood in front of him. The young man stood confidently on his feet. At that very moment he confidently jumped onto the stage straight from the podium. The guy was flying at great speed. A few seconds later he was on the stage, looking into the eyes of his opponent. 107th stood confidently on his feet. The young man introduced himself as Li Cheng from the inner gate. He was blue-eyed and behaved humanely towards his opponent. The hero introduced himself as Lu Chuan from Shaozhu Peak, maintaining the same tolerance and decency. Zhou Yutian was delighted and said that he had finally waited for him. He watched with admiration from the stands. But he couldn't understand where the guy got so much courage to participate in the competition if he didn't have a particularly high cultivation rank. Li Cheng told his brother that they were clanmates and should support each other, but this competition was very important to him, even if it meant harm. Lu Chuan answered with a smile to his clanmate that, be that as it may, he had also recently made a breakthrough in cultivation. After which he clenched his fist, gaining strength, and invited his clanmate not to waste time and finally fight. A major battle between two young guys began on the stage. The blows were crushing, but both were agile and dodged. The people in the stands were stunned, because Lu Chuan was rank 4. The teacher wondered if he no longer had problems with cultivation. Elder Qi watched the fight with a smile, but the head of the clan sat with a very serious face, because he did not expect this. Yu Lingzhao was very nervous, but Hongwen was absolutely calm and rejoiced at Lu Chuan's strength. The young man's hard work and training were not in vain. He felt confident on stage and fought with dignity. Yutian was happy in his mind that Lu was rising to the same level as Ling Yaning. He planned to deal with him when he entered the kingdom. Lu Chuan's blue-eyed rival told the guy with a smile that it turns out that he, too, has success in promotion. The confident young man said that, therefore, he asks to be taken more seriously. His gaze was extremely confident. The situation at the competition was heating up. People were in anticipation of a powerful duel between two clan members. Li Cheng told his brother that he was starting. He had the 8th tier of Qi refinement and was an ice caster. Lu Chuan, with the 8th rank of Qi refinement and a swordsman, said that he was also ready for a duel. Li told himself in his thoughts that he needed to be much more careful with a swordsman. He would have to use sophisticated techniques. He used the ice spell technique and dealt a crushing blow to his opponent, Lu Chuan. But the young man was far from timid, and his opponent's sophisticated technique did not change his self-confidence at all. Lu decided not to waste a second and act as quickly as possible. He immediately pulled the sword out of the holster with a sharp movement. With deft movements, he began to dodge his opponent's blows, trying to get close to him to strike. Li Cheng tried to stop him with all his might, launching counterattacks, but Lu Chuan continued to dodge the blows. None of the attacks harmed the young man eager for victory. He continued to look sternly into his opponent's eyes. Li Cheng launched another attack and screamed and asked the guy if he could only run away. At one moment, something unexpected happened, which plunged Lu Chuan into a slight stupor. Ice began to bulge from under his feet. Li Qing used a cunning technique and decided to use a large ice blade. Li Qing made every effort to defeat his staunch rival. He believed that victory would be his. Lu Chuan was surrounded by piles of ice, and a large ice blade was about to hit him. But unexpectedly, when Cheng was confident of his victory, the young man, with the help of small efforts, broke all the ice around him. Li was dumbfounded and did not understand how this was possible. He completely underestimated his opponent and his strength. Lu Chuan simply silently jumped down on his opponent, preparing to deliver the decisive blow. Li Qing realized that he had underestimated his strength. At the last moment, the young man simply put the handle of his sword to his opponent's body, since these were just competitions, not games of survival. He asked him to give up with a smile. Li Qing said with a smile that he lost, but he is not sorry, because brother Lu is much stronger than him. It was announced that Lu Chuan of Shaozhou Peak had won. He is an excellent swordsman, but someone has been spreading bad rumors about him. The student wondered how he got into swordsmanship if he was a master of formations. Yutian realized that it would be more difficult to deal with the guy. The head of the clan and the elders were extremely surprised, and the young men were not delighted with the victory, because the bet was on Yu Lingzhao's student. Yu Feng fell face down into the mud. One of the elders said that it was unexpected that Elder Lu's disciple would show such success. Qi Siyuan supported him. Ling Zhao said that it was too early to rejoice, because there were many difficulties ahead, and perhaps he was just lucky. The head turned around and said that she was stricter with the guy than Lu Muan herself. The girl replied that she was telling the truth. He asked Yu if she really couldn't accept that Muan's strength was equal, but the girl nervously replied that he did not understand anything and called him ignorant. Yu Lingzhao was in deep thought for a moment. Her face was serious, and her gaze was lowered to the floor. She remembered Lu Chuan and said that she hoped Lu's efforts on his behalf would not be in vain, because she even went to the healer. Ling Zhao kept wondering when Lu Muan would return. If she was late, she would never see Lin Yanbing's stunning victory. Li Qing said that he now understands that everyone just wanted to confuse his brother's reputation. Lu said he had no plans to respond to the rumors. Li told his brother that he believed that great success awaited him in cultivation. Chuan turned back in surprise. The system panel issued tasks for the young man. He was surprised, because for one of the tasks a fragment of memories was presented as a reward. Suddenly, it was as if something began to enter the young man's body through his chest. Lu Chuan was very nervous because he didn't understand anything. Something strange and incomprehensible began to happen to the young man. It was as if his mind had turned upside down. A large number of memories began to float into his head. This provoked mild throbbing pain in the head. Lu told Li Qing that he was no match for him, so it was time to admit defeat, to which he replied that victory was very important to him. The picture of the fight was very clear in the guy's head. He couldn't believe it was really him. The winner was announced as Lu Chuan from Shaozhou Peak. A bloody Li Qing lay in the judge's arms, and the young man said that he asked for it himself. People shouted that he didn't deserve to win because it was obvious that he was much stronger than his opponent. People shouted that he was ruthless. Holding the pill in his hands, Lu Chuan said that Li Qing knew that he couldn't handle it, but he still entered the fight. Everything became even stranger in the guy's head. He began to see vile and terrifying demons. After which he saw his mentor. The young man did not understand what was going on and where the mentor came from. A flock of demons tried to devour the young man, but he tried his best to fight them off. Lu Chuan's face was bloody, and his gaze was especially furious and fierce. The demons did not give him the opportunity to rest. He saw Li Qing fighting, his body pierced, blood began to pour out of his chest. Lu asked why he came here, since he was in the Golden Core period, but Li, who barely spoke, only asked him not to take his pills anymore. Bleeding, he finally only asked brother Lu to live. Lu Chuan became even more nervous. At one point he began to scream, trying to understand if these were his memories. Li Qing grabbed him on his shoulder because he didn't know what was wrong. Lu Chuan asked brother Li if he would help him if a disaster suddenly happened. His eyes were very tired. Li Qing replied that of course he would help him. The young man asked if he was really ready to do this even at the cost of his life. Brother Li laughed and said that we need to think about this already. The brother's laughter was sincere. Lu asked him not to take it seriously and said that he was just asking. At the end, he thanked his brother for his answer. Li Qing laughed sincerely again and said that he looked serious. Disciple Hua saw Lu Chuan and began to call him. The students began to ask if he remembered them. Lu asked if they dared to enter the mentor's territory. It was difficult to remember everyone, because there are so many of them. Ho Tao said that it was them. He introduced his siblings Waboi, Lu Qi, Lu Chao, and Zhou Yutian. Lu Chuan asked the guys for forgiveness for the inconvenience caused then, making the excuse that they did not know each other then. He also said that he had a special impression of brother Yutian, because only he was able to destroy his water formation, the others failed. Zhuoboi said in surprise that brother Yutian had always been strong, but not this strong. Zhou said to himself in his thoughts that Lu did it on purpose. Hua Tao asked if Zhuo was impressed by brother Zhou's strength. Fight said in his thoughts that if it weren't for training, he would not have been able to destroy the formation. Yutian said that they had it all wrong. He doesn't understand the formation very well, and got out of it by pure chance. Lu Chuan said that it seemed like he was just lucky. After all, if brother really understood the formations, they would have already been broken. Yutian was angry, but did not show it. In his thoughts, he told himself that he had never experienced such humiliation, and no one dared to insult him like that. Hua Tao told brother Lu Chuan that he was amazing during the competition. The young man was a little shy. In his mind, he told himself that he had heard that if one entered the Yuanying period or practiced demonic techniques, one could even capture bodies. Even though Zhou Yutian's appearance is no different from other people, his energy is very chaotic, which makes him tense. Hua Tao admiringly asked everyone to pay attention, because it seemed that disciple Ling Yaning had arrived. Lu Chuan paid attention. The commentator began to say that she was the real genius of the Lanhua clan. It has been cultivated for only 2 years, but is already showing great success. Zhou Yutian smiled wickedly and wondered in his mind if she wouldn't be just as beautiful in a pool of blood. The teacher asked not to stay long, despite the fact that there are no time limits in the competition. Yanbing kindly listened to his request. Gunsmith Wang Shi from Balian Peak also listened to the teacher's request. He was wearing a long orange robe. In his mind, he told himself that his mentor must be watching him now, so he shouldn't give up. The gunsmith from Balian Peak wasted no time and immediately used a mace on a chain, throwing it towards the enemy. But Ling Yaning was ready for the enemy's attacks. She deftly used her sword and counterattacked her opponent. The girl fought off the mace, which in turn turned around and flew in the other direction. Wang Shi was angry. He clenched his fist tightly to stop the weapon and hold it in the air. He was ready to do anything to win. The green-eyed gunsmith made the throwing weapons acquire chains, which the girl would subsequently be bound with. The iron chains from the weapons began to literally dig into the ground, which should stop Ling Yaning. But the girl tried with all her might to escape from the chains, trying to evade them. Chains pierced the floor. The girl continued to bypass the chains, trying to get close to the enemy to deliver a crushing blow. Ultimately, she succeeded. She walked around all the chains and jumped up to strike from above. But the gunsmith was not going to give up so easily. He looked sternly into his rival's eyes, coming up with a plan of action. Hand-to-hand combat ensued between the rivals. It was a close fight in which neither of them was inferior. But still, the sharp blade of Elder Yu's disciple pierced the body of the green-eyed armorer from Balian Peak. Ling Yanbing's emerald eyes looked at her bleeding opponent without much emotion. She dealt a decisive blow to a powerless enemy. Wang Shi fell to the ground and could no longer resist. Ling Zhao said that he was not up to her level, and was too weak for her. She asked if they could find something better. The spectators were very nervous, because the dark shield explodes, and therefore things are bad. Everyone began to get very worried. Gunsmith Wang Shi from Balian Peak still did not give up. He used sophisticated techniques in the hope of destroying the enemy. But this did not frighten Ling Yaning at all. She began to run towards the enemy in order to finally get rid of him. The girl's gaze was stern and absolutely cold-blooded towards the insidious enemy. She dealt a strong blow with her sword to his shield, as a result of which its fragments scattered in different directions. The armorer's clothes were torn to shreds, but the girl managed to deftly bypass the enemy. She had a strong advantage. The audience was stunned by her actions. Lu Chuan was one of those who looked at the progress of the battle with particular surprise. Ling Yaning from the Lanhua clan was declared the winner. She calmly asked the guy to give up, and he admitted defeat. People were delighted with the girl. Wang Shi was angry that he had learned nothing in 2 years of studying the craft, but was glad that he was alive. Yanbing told him that despite the high quality of the magic weapon, it is not fully capable of saving. she advised him to heal his wounds. Suddenly, the girl with emerald eyes turned around and looked at one of the guys in the crowd. This guy turned out to be the yellow-eyed Lu Chuan. The young man made eye contact with the girl, and was surprised, because she was looking at him. The clan competitions continued. The man in the purple robe hit his opponent with a strong fist. It was announced that Duan Wuyan had been defeated. The enemy was too strong, but if anyone collided with Yanbing, they would inevitably die. One of the elders said that his disciple trained hard for 10 years, but did not even make it into the top 64. The elderly elder said that it seemed that not everyone was happy with the competition. The head asked what the elder thought about this. The elder replied that the passage to the secret kingdom should not be so easy. He suggested slightly transforming the competition. His opinion was supported, because the competition system has not changed for 30 years. The head said that the amendments may not work in their favor. Ling Zhao suggested that the dropouts be allowed to fight again with the students in the top 64. But her idea was not supported. One of the elders said that in this case, more guards need to be added. The girl said that they would only accept those students who entered the foundation period. Students will have to endure 3 rounds. The head of the clan was surprised by the girl's intelligence, and the elders, like the head, were interested in Yu Lingzhao's proposal. Yu Feng immediately exclaimed that if there were no objections, then in that case, that's what they would do. It was announced that if any of those eliminated defeat those at the top, they will receive the right to enter the secret kingdom. Lu Chuan said in his mind that it turns out that it is only a matter of time before he enters the kingdom. He decided that it was time to increase his cultivation level. The young man did his best. His mind and body were tense and his fist was clenched tightly. The young man's concentration was at the highest level. Those around were surprised, because someone had made a breakthrough. Lu Chuan received the 9th rank of Qi refinement. The young man said that he had previously taken a lot of pills, so his body had accumulated enough strength. The students congratulated him on his breakthrough. Yu Tian said that Brother Lu is very talented. He overcame another barrier so easily. He said that he would not have any problems in the secret kingdom. Chuan realized that Zhou was up to something wrong because he was talking about a secret kingdom. This is the perfect opportunity to catch him. The disciple from Linchu Peak was declared the winner. It was a man with long red hair. Hua Tao said that it looked like today's game was coming to an end. Lu Chuan suggested going to Shaozhu Peak and resting. Moreover, he said that he had read about a new formation and wanted to explore it. The students asked to tell us more about her. All this seemed interesting to the treacherous Zhou Yutian. Nobody knew what he was up to. After a while, a group of young people came to Shaozhu Peak. The weather was great. It was easier to breathe among the green trees. Lu said that this formation will not harm strangers. It was created to smooth out the topography of the peak. To enhance its effect, you need to find the center. Zhou Yutian held his blade in his hands. He intended to find the center of the formation by following Brother Lu's advice. He asked his brother if he meant something like that, after which he said that he believed the center was somewhere here. Yutian said that one piece is at a disadvantage, after which it is swallowed by another. He looked at the chessboard and said that, be that as it may, someone alone in this game will die tragically. But he still understood that there was no point in talking, and asked to let him try to get to the bottom of it. He began to move the pieces on the chessboard, trying to get to the bottom of it and understand everything down to the smallest detail. Suddenly, the formation began its action. According to the illusion, he was reduced to the size of a piece on a chessboard. Yutian said that he thought the current formation needed to be broken a little, but won't this become a kind of test for him? All of this was very interesting, and he considered Lu Chuan to be a true genius, only he was worthy of capturing all of his abilities. A bright yellow color immediately began to erupt from the center of the chessboard. It was like a volcanic eruption. Zhou Yutian smiled sarcastically and said that this game will only become interesting when he completely destroys everything. Silhouettes of demons began to appear around him, with whom he would have to fight. The illusion was in full force. Demons began to surround Yutian, but he only laughed fearlessly and said that it was time to start. He swung his huge sharp blade sharply, intending to deliver crushing blows to his opponents. Yutian continued to fearlessly laugh in the faces of his opponents, swinging his sword from side to side. Nothing stopped him at all. He continued to fight fearlessly, swinging his blade. The demons did not decrease and there were more and more of them, but Zhou Yutian's strength did not end either. But during the next blow he was thrown back by the blast wave. The guy's strength was a little lost. He managed to land firmly on his feet, and immediately became wary, because he could not understand where the power of the transformation period came from. Fearless laughter left Zhou Yutian's face. He became very nervous and screamed and wondered who this Lu Chuan was. He didn't even think about giving up, and decided that it was time to act seriously. His opponent was a huge hand. Unexpectedly, Zhou Yutian transformed into a beast with a long tongue and sharp teeth. There was an explosion, after which he completely transformed. This was the highest stage of laying the foundations. At that very moment he began to fight with a huge hand that wanted to grind him to smithereens. Lu Chuan slammed his fist on the table and said that they seemed to be in trouble, and they said they missed him. Lu Chuan realized that Zhou Tianyu and the other disciples were practicing demonic techniques. They skillfully deceived everyone. Apparently, he planned to lure him and the others into a secret kingdom, and then push him to the wall, and all this for the sake of sacrifice. The young man realized that it looked like someone was deliberately putting a spoke in their wheels. Zhou Tianyu's demonic skills are not that simple. Despite the fact that now he has a wild desire to finish him off, he may still be useful to them in the future. The fragments of his memories do not contain information about demonic cultivation. We need to find the right moment for exposure. Through Lu Chuan congratulated everyone on the successful destruction of the formation, and announced that brothers Hua broke out first, followed by Hua. He also said that the last to arrive was brother Zhou, who unfortunately was a little behind the others. Yutian did not understand what happened. Zhou told brother Lu that his formation was very cool, and he recreated the chess game to destroy the formation. He said we need to start the game. Yutian said that although he was not able to break out of the formation, he still learned a lot. Next time he will definitely do it. Lu Chuan said that in this case, he expresses his gratitude to all of them for their participation. Meanwhile, a small group of people with a specific goal passed through the Valley of Fog. In total, the group consisted of 6 people. Each of them was dressed in a long black robe. A man walked ahead, lighting the way for the others. One of the men timidly said that it seemed to him that someone was looking at them, but the man walking in front remained completely emotionless. He told the others that he understood their fears, but there was no need to panic, because most likely it was the lady wandering around somewhere. But suddenly, a woman's voice came from a huge hole in the wall. All group members were very wary. The man who was lighting the way was very scared because it was the head. A woman in heels walked towards them. The head was a charming girl with white hair. She was wearing a loose latex suit with a cutout at the chest. The man fell to his knees and asked forgiveness for taking so long to find her. The girl called them trash because she had been waiting for them for so long. The man handed her a glowing thing and said that they were ready to follow the lady anywhere. The lady took the lantern from his hands. With a serious face, she began to move forward, and her subordinates began to follow her. Finally, they reached the exit from the cave. Bright sunlight was visible in the huge hole. In the cave there was a demonic dragon whose eyes were red. He watched his victims. Meanwhile, clan competitions continued. The weather was sunny outside. The following participants prepared for battle. One of the men said that with his period of chi purification, he would not be able to cope with people with the laying of foundations. The teacher asked him to stop whining. Disciple Hua exclaimed joyfully that brother Lu was coming on stage. The red-haired guy was very angry. He sneered viciously, saying that Wang Lizo is in his foundation period. He is Elder Wanyu's disciple, so he will smear Lu Chuan. Wang Lizo smiled sarcastically and called Lu Chuan trash when greeting him. He was confident in his abilities. The young man wondered if he really had a grudge against him. Even though they met for the first time in their lives, he did not understand the reason for this behavior. Lu Chuan asked the guy if he was his rival. He was also confident in his abilities because he had no intention of losing to anyone. This made Wang Lizo angry. The spectators were amazed. After all, Neo is in the period of laying the foundations. Is Lu really not afraid? Lizo said that it looks like brother Lu needs to be taught some manners. Chuan repeated once again that he was not his rival. Van laughed evilly and said that he once had a cat, which he beat to death for disobedience, and wants to do the same to him. He is on the whole estate. He will crush the young man with one finger. It was already slowly getting dark outside. The sun was setting below the horizon. Ling Zhao told Elder Wang that they had something new here. Yufeng said that a sharp tongue would not hurt, but everyone in their clan was decent anyway. The elder of the Xuanchuan clan, Mu Xinyu, said that they can talk the enemy to death. There is definitely no doubt about it. Qi Siyuan apologized for the student's behavior, but said that despite his arrogance, he was very kind. Yu Lingzhao said that in any case, they have enough defenders, and if something happens to Lu Chuan, then nothing bad will happen. In her thoughts, she told herself that the young man would definitely run to the skirt of his beloved mentor Lu Muan. The judge announced to the participants that the competition was finally beginning. The rivals were ready for the fight. Wang Lizo laughed viciously in the face of his opponent, sharply swinging his sword. He screamed that he would bring him to his knees. The audience was very surprised, because he used this technique at the very beginning. People began to wonder whether Brother Lu would survive. Lu Chuan only coolly called his opponent backward. In his thoughts, he realized that the enemy only wanted to play a cruel joke. Suddenly, he decided to counterattack the enemy and used the formation to confuse the enemy. Disciple Hua was very admired by Brother Lu, because he took advantage of the formation, which means he changes the course of the game. This did not scare Wang Lizo. He only mockingly asked the enemy if he really thought that the formation he had built would save him. After that, he threw a sharp blade with a sharp movement in order to destroy the young man's formation. But Lu Chuan was not a timid person. He used another technique to return the sword to its sender. But the young man did not succeed. The cunning opponent used a sophisticated technique, and Lu fell to the floor. The referee was asked to stop the fight. The insidious Wang Lizo did not give the guy the opportunity to rise to his knees, and viciously continued to mock him. The blue beam literally pierced right through Lu Chuan. The young man did not understand what was happening to him, and could not resist it. Zuo was delighted that Brother Lu had built the formation so quickly. This slowed down Lizo a little. But still he laughed evilly and said that such a trick would not work with him. He swung his sword from side to side. Huo was nervous because Wang had destroyed the formation. Zuo said that if the difference in strength is large, it will not be possible to keep the enemy trapped for a long time. Zhou Yutian asked his companions to pay attention to the scene. Something interesting happened in the duel. He said that several more techniques have appeared. The rivals continued to fight as best they could. Zhou happily said that this was already a golden formation. The wind is superimposed on the ground, causing a golden formation to appear. The golden formation gave Lu Chuan an advantage. Wang Lizo shouted that he was taking on too much at the qi purification stage. The young man did not succumb to his verbal provocations, and continued to attack his opponent with all methods. The nervous Lizo said that he would look at him again when all his spiritual strength dried up. Angrily waving his sword, he asked the young man if he really decided to fight to the last. Wang Lizo became nervous as he realized that this was a formation. He wondered if he hadn't broken it. He also wondered where the guy got the 5-element formation from. Lu Chuan continued to fight silently. Unexpectedly, he used a powerful technique, namely, he released a demonic dragon at his opponent. A flock of demons was heading towards the opponent at his behest. Lizo became very nervous after this reception. He shouted that so many demons were useless, and screamed and asked Lu Chuan what was wrong with him. He clutched the blade tightly in his hand and asked his opponent why he didn't fight face to face. Lu Chuan silently began to head towards the enemy to finally deliver the decisive blow and end the fight. Wang Lizo nervously tried to ask his opponent something, but he failed. The young man was a few steps away from him. Van fell to his knees as he could not stand. Lu asked if he couldn't see what was happening to him. He said that he was about to lose his life. Lizo could barely speak. He couldn't believe that he had almost lost. He shouted angrily that he had broken Lu Chuan's formation. This whole picture was completely incomprehensible to him. But the young man looked emotionlessly into his eyes, calmly asking why he decided that he had destroyed the formation. Zhou nervously said that in fact Wang had not destroyed a single formation, because all this time Lu had been deliberately weakening them, creating the appearance of destruction. Disciple Hua too said that in this case, it is not surprising that the formations changed so much. Wang Lizo was trapped by Lu Chuan. On his knees, he shouted that Lu had deceived him, and it was all an illusion. The guy just asked if he really realized this only now, and who is finished now. Chuan of Shaozhou Peak was declared the winner. He entered the top 64, for which he received a fragment of memories as a reward. Observers of the competition wondered if Lu was really that strong. Despite their prejudices, he turned out to be not so weak. Lizo shouted that he had not lost because this could not happen. Chi Siyuan shouted and asked what he was doing. Van wanted to pierce the young man with a blade, but he failed. Lu Chuan turned around and stabbed him. Blood immediately began to pour out of the guy. People were stunned, because the energy of the blade is very powerful, and this was a rather unexpected turn of events. The enemy screamed in pain. The judge was stunned, because he thought that only Ling Yaning achieved the intention of the blade. People realized that Lu Chuan was only pretending to be weak. People began to wonder whether the guy would get away with it after he injured his opponent in front of the elders, and whether things would change in their eyes. One of the elders said that as it turned out, Wang Lizo's skills were quite mediocre. Lu Chuan began to leave, and the elder quietly said that they would take care of this guy in the future. The competition ended successfully. After a while, the young man was already resting in his native peak Shaozhou. He enjoyed the hot pool, telling himself that he certainly had a hard time this time. But suddenly, his chambers were disturbed by strange sounds. The young man remained calm, but looked warily in the other direction. A terrifying demon appeared before him, whose goals were unknown. The young man still remained calm. The demon began to approach the guy, before sticking out his huge red hand. The nails on his hand were long and sharp, but a strong blue shield appeared between Lu Chuan and the demon, allowing them to talk. The young man asked to let him go and asked if he still wanted to fight. He also added that fortunately, he is not empty-handed. Lu Chuan smiled fearlessly and said that it was Wang Yu. There was absolutely no fear in his eyes. The demon's foot stepped onto a piece of land, not far from which the young man stood. The guy was absolutely calm. The demon told the guy that Lu Muan was watching him very closely, and asked how he knew about his identity. Lu said that it was understandable that everyone wanted to avenge their son, who had been defeated, and in the end, he decided to stop by. Wang Yu laughed threateningly and admitted that he was smart, but his brain would not save him from death. Lu Chuan silently looked at the demon. The young man looked at it and realized that it was in the Yuanying period. He assessed the situation and told himself that he could handle it. But Wang Yu was more cunning than the young man thought. He took advantage of the duplication, which made the young man wary. Lu Chuan became nervous as he saw the silhouette. He wondered if it was him, but realized that it was a different energy. It turned out that it was his mentor Lu Muan. The guy immediately shouted and asked Wang Yu how he dared to do this. The mentor asked in a calm tone if her help was needed, to which the young man shouted in response, "No." Wang Yu wondered if she hadn't left, and why she came back now. It all seemed strange. Mentor Lu Muan told Lu Chuan that he had held out well and could leave the rest to her. Originally, she could suppress Wang Yu with just one move, but now everything had changed. This will most likely scare him away. Lu Muan decided that she needed to act and move forward. The demon was ready to fight to the last. Wang Yu was on rocky thoughts, thinking about this whole situation. He himself was angry and dissatisfied with everything. He tried to find the answer to the question of why Lu Muan had so much arrogance, since she was not at all afraid of him. He also said in his thoughts that there was obviously a Yuanying period cultivator next to her, so he would not be able to defeat her. Wang Yu told his son that it was time for them to leave. Wang Lizo was nervous because he didn't understand what was going on. The father told his son that if they fight Lu Muan, then everything will end for them here and now. The young man said that he understood everything. Father and son decided to let go, and at that very moment they began to fly away from the rocks, where they thought about everything. The man noticed their silhouettes and wondered if this was not Wang Yu with his son Wang Lizo. Father and son continued to fly forward at great speed in order to quickly hide from everyone. Meanwhile, at Shaozhou Peak, the fight between the strong mentor Lu Muan and the demon continued. The girl fearlessly fought against a huge demon, eager to destroy her, and her student. Lu Muan mercilessly struck the demon with her blade, not giving him the opportunity to even get close to her. Lu Chuan, watching this, admired his mentor. He said in his thoughts that even though she was in the Golden Core period, her skills were refined and graceful. The higher the cultivation period, the greater the gap between the forces. Many cultivators would not survive, but the teacher is completely different. The young man continued to watch the fight, mentally telling himself that it was obvious that Lu Muan had the upper hand. The demon told himself that he was in the Yuanying period, so her death was just a matter of time. The demon shouted at the top of his voice that this was fate. He literally glared, as if preparing to strike an insidious blow. Teacher Lu Muan became very wary at the moment, as she realized that this was a bloody soul demon. She flashed back 2 years ago. Lu will never forget the tragedy in the Wan family village. She almost had to take a desperate step to save Lu Chuan's life. He was still a little boy then. Then she had to let the bloody demon leave in order to save the boy's life. The demon then mocked her. She looked sternly at the bloody demon and said that she never thought that she would meet him again. The anger in her eyes was full. Lu Chuan became very nervous and shouted to his mentor that it was Wang Yu from the inner gate. Lu Muan asked in surprise whether she had heard wrong. The bloody demon mocked viciously and moved towards the girl to finally finish what he started in the past and deal with her. The student was very worried about his mentor, and asked her to be careful in the fight with the demon. Lu looked sternly at the enemy. She used a powerful technique to cause irreparable harm to the blood demon and get rid of it forever. But at one moment she became very wary, and her eyes bulged, as the demon used the entrance of the moon. The blood moon began to enter space, but Lu Muan was not going to give up so easily. She decided to stop the bloody demon from gaining an advantage, and finally destroy it. The girl used a powerful technique. The demon was stunned and could not believe it. He couldn't understand how she could defeat him while in the Golden Core period if he was in the Yuanying period. The blood demon was eliminated and fell to the ground moments later. Huge layers of dust rose into the sky. The head of the Yufeng clan asked Elder Lu what was the matter and what even happened here. He was very surprised. When the smoke cleared, he saw a bloody demon lying on the ground, screaming in pain. The head was stunned. He shouted that this was a bloody demon and ordered everyone to hold him so that he would not have time to harm anyone. The bloody demon stood up and turned to Lu Chuan, looking sternly into his eyes. The young man drew attention to him. The demon said that since his death was inevitable, he would take the guy with him. Lu was immediately grabbed tightly by him. The demon laughed evilly and held the guy tightly. Lu Muan said that the Yuanying Periodra cultivator can reproduce self-arson. Lu Chuan was very nervous and tried to escape from the clutches of the demon, but the bloody demon only said that they would die together. The insidious demon did not waste a minute and finally decided to set himself on fire to destroy the young man. Lu Muan couldn't believe it, because the mentor had already found a person who could help Lu Chuan with cultivation. She was very scared because she was afraid for the student. Her heart was beating very fast with fear. Lu heard Lu Chuan call her mentor in a low voice. The girl shed tears, and her eyes were bulging in shock. She saw the silhouette of a young man in the fog. The young man said something to her, heading towards the exit from the fog. Coming out of the fog, Lu Chuan said that he was fine. He had several small abrasions on his face. Lu Muan felt as if a stone had been lifted from her soul after she saw her disciple. There were tears in her eyes. She immediately hugged her student tightly and said that this was wonderful and she was very glad that everything was fine. The teacher handed the student a pill and asked him to eat it quickly. The young man smiled, because these were just minor injuries. Lu Muan insistently asked him to open his mouth to put a pill into it. Lu Chuan decided not to resist and obeyed. The head called him lucky because he survived the suicide bombing of a Yuanying period cultivator. Lu said it was all thanks to the defense. What he said about defense interested mentor Lu Muan. She looked at the student in surprise. The girl also asked Daoist Yu if she could help examine disciple Lu Chuan. She hugged the young man to her chest. Yu Qingyue from the Yaowang clan was absolutely calm. She had a large hat on her head, highlighting her pink eyes. Hongwen asked Elder Lu if she really decided to turn to someone other than her doctor when their student was injured. Lu Muan admitted her guilt and asked her sister to examine Lu Chuan. The girl replied that the defense saved the young man's body. Hongwen asked if the Taoist could see this, to which the girl replied that there was nothing wrong with the young disciple's body. Yu Lingzhao asked Lu Muan who fought with her, and who even dared to attack the Lanyue clan. The elder replied that Lu Chuan said that it was Wang Yu, the elder of the inner gate. This shocked Hongwen. The youth said that he had not contacted anyone other than Wang Lizo, so the attack could only have been carried out by Wang Yu, and he did not deny it. One of the elders nervously said that this could not be, because he was on the cliffs. Clan head Zhou Yufeng also nervously asked to send someone there to find Wang Yu. The elderly elder said that when he was coming here, he saw him and Wang Lizo running away. He rushed here as soon as the battle began. The clan leader shouted that it was too early to draw conclusions and said that they needed to check Wang Yu. Elder Gu supported him. Yu Feng told the elder that he needed him to confirm the presence of dead souls, and whether any of them were from the Wan family's village. The clan head and Elder Gu went into the distance to find Wang Yu. Elder Yu Lingzhao and Yu Qingyue looked after them. Qingyue asked the elder what she would do now that Lu Chuan was okay. Elder Lu wondered when they had time to meet each other. The young man realized that it seemed like there was some kind of secret between them. Ling Zhao pulled the guy's cheeks and said that she thinks they need to diagnose him, because Lu Muan is very worried about him. Yu Qingyue from the Yaowang clan suddenly grabbed the guy's wrist, starting a medical procedure. Lu Chuan became nervous and realized that he needed to disguise himself with fantasies of emptiness, otherwise she would understand everything. The doctor looked at him with a piercing gaze and asked if he knew anything about the fantasies of the void. The young man decided to feign ignorance. He asked her in surprise what it was. Sweat ran down his face. Suspicions disappeared and Yu Qingyue said that his cultivation problem was solved. Lu Muan was happy and hugged the guy. There was happiness in her charming red eyes. She thanked Yu Lingzhao for her help, but the girl condescendingly replied that there was no need for thanks, because she only decided to find a worthy opponent for Lin Yanbing. Lu Chuan looked at her, calling her a pretender in his thoughts. Lu Muan, in turn, looked at her in surprise. Ling Zhao said that Fong Hongwen left the key to the hot spring, and if they want, they can go. Lu Muan took the key from her hand, and with a smile invited Lu Chuan to go there together. The young man was very interested in her proposal. After time in the hot spring, Lu said that Hongwen said that the spring would help with wound healing and muscle recovery. The teacher stood up and asked the young man what kind of protection he had mentioned earlier, and said that she had never heard of such a thing. She also said that it was up to him to tell or not. The girl was wearing a thin white peignoir. Lu Chuan told the mentor that she must have completely forgotten about the entry rules. The girl said she would follow the rules. But quite unexpectedly, she slipped on a puddle of water. Her leg was immediately pulled forward and her body pulled back. The girl screamed in fright as she suddenly slipped and began to fly forward. Lu Chuan was afraid for his mentor. He shouted at her to be careful. Lu Muan was lucky and fell straight into the pool of water. The girl fell right on top of her student, which softened her fall quite a bit. The guy awkwardly looked into her eyes, trying to appeal. He could not put together two words from the inconvenience caused by her being caught. The young man's cheeks turned red with embarrassment. In the end, he still said that she should be more careful. Lu Muan was tightly pressed to the young man's body, looking at him with sympathy in her eyes. But at one point she still realized that this was her student, and not a guy. Her cheeks also turned red. The teacher immediately jumped to the side, shouting throughout the hot spring that her student was a pervert. The girl hit Lu Chuan on the head, and the young man held his head and said that he had not thought of anything like that. Lu asked what he was thinking about. Since the competition was in full swing, Lu replied that he had already reached the 10th rank of Qi refinement. He also added that, moreover, at this stage only those who are in the top 64 can participate. Elder Lu jumped up in surprise, asking in surprise if he had entered the top 64 strongest. Because the girl jumped up abruptly, her peignoir came off a little. The young man was stunned, because the mentor stood in front of him in all her glory. Deep surprise struck Lu Chuan, and mentor Lu Muan again considered him guilty and hit him on the nose. She again loudly called him a pervert. Even though the young man was not guilty of anything, it was deep night outside. It was deep night outside, but the moon and stars illuminated the earth brightly. The teacher and student did not sleep. The young man was giving a massage to his mentor, who was sipping hot tea. Lu Muan told Lu Chuan that he had done well during the month that she had been gone. The guy replied that he was still far from reaching her. He said that she had gone in search of a doctor for him, and it was obviously not easy for her. Lu replied slightly embarrassed that after all, Elder Yu had given her consent to Taoist Yu Qingyue's invitation. Lu Chuan said that his problem with cultivation was solved thanks to his mentor. The mentor said that he is always serious in such moments. At one point, the elder told the student that, among other things, there was something he should know about. Lu Chuan found out that it was coming out that Wang Yu attacked him due to the fact that the affairs of their clan could be revealed. Lu said the boy had memory loss. The guy said in his thoughts that amnesia was a cover for his transformation into this body. He did not think that the enemy who killed the owner of the body would return. Lu Muan also asked if it was true that he had defeated Wang Lizo, and wasn't he in the stage of laying the foundations. Lu Chuan became nervous and said that she herself was in the Golden Core period when she defeated the enemy in the Yuanying period. The mentor smiled sincerely and said that this was also true. In her thoughts, she said that flattery never failed. She said that there was a big gap between their periods. Even if they defeated Wang Lizo, it would be more difficult with Ling Yaning. Lu Chuan thought deeply after his mentor's advice not to become arrogant. In his head, he saw Yanbing. The young man decided to move away from the topic and invited his mentor to talk about something else. The girl asked not to pour any more water for her, because this was already drunkenness. Lu said that he made this alcohol himself, so it couldn't make her drunk. Lu Muan was surprised by the amount of his abilities. The teacher got distracted and accidentally spilled some alcohol on herself, which the student was pouring for her. The girl complained about the guy's crooked hands. Meanwhile, the liquid flowed down her thin white peignoir. Lu Chuan said with a smile that he had made a mistake and asked the mentor to take off her clothes, promising to wash them immediately. Lu Muan screamed and asked what he was doing. The young man answered more calmly that he just wanted to help. The next morning, Wang Yu and his son Wang Lizo continued to fly on a long journey. The father told his son that the city of Zitai was located below, and they would hide there for now. Lizo said that they must take revenge on Lu Chuan. But unexpectedly, someone unknown stood in their way. The silhouette sternly asked where they were going. Wang Yu became very nervous and shouted and asked who it was. In his mind he wondered if they were being followed. He felt that the silhouette was going through a period of rebirth. This energy is very dangerous. Wang Yu was very nervous and asked His Excellency why he was blocking their path. The man asked him not to pretend. Yu's eyes widened in shock and he asked with a trembling voice if it was Lu Chuan. The young man simply said that he would have to answer, blood for blood. There was absolute composure in his voice. At that very moment he began to massacre his opponents. The screams of pain were very loud, but they could not resist. After a while, the clan competition continued. The fight ended and Lu Chuan quietly said that his opponent was defeated. In his thoughts, he said that the student did not let his mentor down in this fight. He made a huge effort to win. The teacher said that Elder Lu accepted a good student. He is also capable of blade intent, and will definitely become an asset to the clan. Lu Muan asked with particular surprise what the intention of the blade was. The teacher asked how she could not know about her student's success. Yu Lingzhao said with a malicious smile that it seemed that Lu did not know everything about his disciple. The teacher was worried. Yu felt nervous as she was ignored. Lu Chuan's mentor told herself in her thoughts that she would ask him about it later, because he might have forgotten. The young man was declared the winner of the round. The Lanhua clan is considered one of the 5 great ones, and they have more than enough capable students. The agile cultivator Lu Chuan made a high jump and landed on the podium right from the stage. Zhou Yutian told the guy that he heard that in the secret realm there may be 5th and even 6th levels, so sometimes it's worth collaborating. With a sly smile, he asked brother Lu Chuan if he would like to join them and cooperate. Disciple Ho Tu told his brother that it was true that they needed to act together, because with his formations they had a chance of success. Lu Chuan mentally called Yutian a hypocrite and wondered if he was still planning to attack him in the secret realm. He looked into the eyes of the treacherous Zhou and said that he was afraid he would not have a single chance of success. The judge announced that the competition for the top 32 people was now over. It was also said that the entrance to the secret kingdom was declared open. The year promises to be truly exciting. Lu Chuan suddenly used one of the techniques and aimed it directly at Zhou Yutian, who was not expecting anything. At that very moment, some strange things began to happen to him, the reasons for which he did not understand. Yutian began to transform into a demon, and the other students turned around with caution. None of them could understand what was wrong, because a minute ago everything was in order. Zhou was completely transformed. Lu Muan looked at him in surprise, and the people around screamed and wondered where the demonic cultivator was coming from. Zhou Yutian in the flesh of a demon was a threat to those around him. He was going to destroy every single one of them. Lu Muan took out a sharp sword and covered Lu Chuan's back, ordering him to immediately step aside. She was ready to fight the demon. The head of the clan, Zhou Yufeng, shouted and ordered to immediately seize the demon and prevent him from harming others. The elders gathered their strength and began to fly straight at the demon in order to jointly neutralize it. Qi Siyuan used the death vine and caused great harm to the demon. The demon began to scream in pain. The pain was unbearable. but Zhou Yutian had no intention of giving up and simply tried to endure it. He wondered why the body suddenly appeared and decided that he needed a new body, because he couldn't get caught by it. The elders tried with all their might to stop the demon. At one point, they began to shackle his case with ropes. The clan leader told himself that his disciple Zhou Yutian was not like that, his body must have been possessed by a demon. Ho Tu shouted that his brother must have come under the influence of someone in the Valley of Fog, and he needed to report to the head, but Yufeng forbade him to leave the arena. Elder Gu used one of the techniques, placing his hand directly on the demon's head. The demon screamed with all his might. Yutian from the demon's body shouted that it was him. In the Valley of Fog, he fell under the influence of demonic cultivators, which is why he looks like this now. He tried to assure the mentor that it was he, his student. He said that it was his mentor who caught his energy in that village. The demon begged his mentor with all his might to look at him, trying to prove that he was his student, but Qi did not believe him. The mentor shouted that the test showed that the student was dead and he was a demon. The demon shouted that he would finish him off, so he could expect no mercy. He also looked at Elder Gu and said that he, too, would be in trouble. The elder looked emotionlessly at the bound demon. Finally, the demon shouted loudly that he would get to Lu Chuan. He promised that he would get rid of all of them. The young man calmly looked into the eyes of the demon and said that he could try to destroy him if he could. Elder Lu Muan was worried about the student and did not want him to go to the demon first. She tried to remain calm. The demon went completely wild and tried to say something to them. There was only anger and rage in his eyes. He shouted loudly that he hated them all, but none of those around him succumbed to his provocations. Yufeng asked Elder Gu who this person was. The elder replied that he had altered his memories to make analysis more difficult. But it is obvious that the enemy came from the Valley of the Fog. In addition to Ogo, he is very strong. In addition to Yutian, there are also people who fell under his influence. Elder Gu said that he was very worried about Lu Chuan and Ling Yaning, because they could be in danger. He said that the rivals had thought things through, faked their identities, and tried to improve their cultivation using the energy of their disciples. The head of the Zhou Yufeng clan asked, since Wang Yu and Wang Lizo were dead, where their bodies were. People began to assume that there was some connection between these events. The head said in his thoughts that now is not the calmest time. He said it was too early to draw conclusions. The secret kingdom is about to open. Their clan will discuss future plans with other elders. Lu Muan took Lu Chuan's hand and said that it was time for them to return. Master Qi grieved for his student. He said quietly that when it was all over, he would take the student home. Lu looked at him emotionlessly. The young man told his mentor that changes were coming, and she needed to rest a little, because she was clearly tired. Lu Muan said that she heard that he understood the intentions of the blade. She asked him to show how far he had come. Lu Chuan became nervous and sweat started running down his face. He said that this was all nonsense, because he only scared Wang Lizo. He said he was afraid, but he let his mentor down. Lu Muan asked him not to worry and give it all up. The young man smiled at his mentor and said that she needn't worry, because everything would be fine with him. The guy's words calmed Elder Lu a little. She smiled back at the student and said that was great. She suggested going to Hushan and said that she would practice fencing with the young man. Lu said it was too late, but the mentor still insisted on her own. After a while, the student and teacher were already in Kushan. Lu Muan told the guy that you need to be one in mind and spirit. His will must be one with the blade. She directed the blows of his blade, saying that the blade was him, and he, this is a blade. The young man absorbed all the words of his mentor. Lu Chuan swung his blade in different directions, hitting targets. Lu said that without diligence, nothing will come of it. At the end she said he had good fundamentals. She must be rushing things too much. Chuan said that he was too stupid. Lu laughed and said that there was a lot of time, so there was no hurry. Lu noticed that she had never practiced fencing with him before. He asked if she really wanted pair cultivation. His words made the mentor's cheeks turn red, and she herself opened her mouth in surprise. Clutching her cheeks, she exclaimed in panic that she could not agree to this, and asked if he didn't understand this. Lu Muan said that he is certainly good, but he is too young. Lu Chuan asked where she was going. Weren't they doing something? After a while, it was announced that Ling Yaning and Duan Wuxiao would compete in the next round of the clan competition. There were a lot of questions around. Someone asked how, after what happened with Zhou Yutian, they have the desire to compete. The young judge happily announced that the competition was beginning. Both opponents were ready to fight to the end. Ling Yaning immediately used her signature technique. She confidently held the sword in her hands and looked into the eyes of the enemy. People shouted in admiration that Brother Duan had used his technique, namely the water cave. The fight was promising. The spectators were very worried, since both opponents were very strong. Ling Yaning was a professional swordsman. She looked sternly at her opponent and swung her sword. Spectators wondered if this was the legendary fencing. Wu Xiao used his shield and prevented her from striking. Observers from the stands shouted that the battle was good and very pleasant to watch. Duan stopped her opponent's onslaught. The water cave stopped Ling Yanbing's attack, but the girl had no intention of giving up in front of the wall. She only had a few seconds to come up with a plan of action and get around the water cave. She made a sharp jerk to the side, bypassing the opponent's defensive structure, and was about to strike. Duan Wuxiao knew that he needed to act as soon as possible, otherwise his resistance would be useless. Spectators said that Ling Yanbing's skill was unique. Duan is also not bad, because he has pushed his techniques to the limit. The girl fearlessly swung her sword at the enemy's green water dragon. Their strengths were equal. The dragon was defeated because Ling Yanbing's swordsmanship was unique. The commentator said that Brother Duan is still a little inferior, but the competition is not over yet, so they will still see who wins in the end. Lu Muan said that it is necessary to clearly examine every action of those who compete, since often the fight ends in the blink of an eye. Yu Lingzhao smiled sarcastically and said that she needed to train her student, otherwise he would have to admit defeat soon. Lu said that he would not lose, and besides, they recently had a couples training session, just her and him. Yu asked if they were secretly training. If Lu Muan's words about the fact that only the two of them trained put Ling Zhao in an awkward position. The elder did not know what to answer the girl. In her mind, she wondered what was so bad about this. Lu Chuan watched the fight and said that the blade extends for tens of meters. It feels like the continent is about to be recounted. Ling Yanbing was stronger than her opponent, and her fencing skills helped her win. Wu Xiao fell to the ground. He shouted with all his might that he was admitting defeat. The girl turned out to be more cunning and smarter than her opponent. The judge declared Ling Yanbing from the Lanhua clan as the winner. Yu Lingzhao was surprised that the girl managed it. The spectators were surprised, because her blade energy was terrifying, as if she was about to make a breakthrough. Yu Lingzhao boasted that this was her student. Lu Muan turned around, and leaving, with a little dissatisfaction, asked Lu Chuan to remember her words. The judge announced that Lu Chuan and Pan Fu would fight in the next round. The young man knew that this was the grandson of the elder and he was not particularly cultivated. Pan said that he followed his brother during his battles, and wants to say that his techniques are good, after which he smiled and made a surprising statement that he simply wanted to give up. His words shocked Lu Chuan. There was only bewilderment on his face, and he could not believe his words. Pan Fu began to leave and smiled and said that he was giving up. The young man wondered if this was all. The audience did not understand the guy's action, because he still had a chance. Lu Chuan couldn't wrap his head around this stupid act either. But still, he moved away from these thoughts as his mind returned to Ling Yanbing. Thoughts about her did not give him peace. The young man realized that the duel with her would soon take place, and she was getting closer and closer. Her cold-blooded gaze never left his mind. After a while, Lu Chuan was in the estate. It was deep night outside, but the young man did not sleep. He looked at the system screen. At first he sat without assignments for several years, and now they decided to become more active. Lu said that the teacher wouldn't like it if he touched her clothes again. The massage is also not quite suitable, only the ears remain. Lu Muan suddenly entered the room and asked if the student was looking for her. The guy was very wary. He calmly told his mentor that she was just in time and asked her to sit down. Lu Muan did as he asked and asked if she was sitting down correctly, after which, she asked why he needed this. Lu Chuan asked the mentor not to be afraid and said that he had learned something new. His tone was enticing. The young man said that he just wanted to try out his new skills. The girl's cheeks turned red from the guy's actions. She felt so good that her face turned even redder, and in the moment she let out a small moan. Sweat began to flow down the girl's thighs. She was surprised by the student's skills. Lu asked what he was doing. The girl felt great pleasure, but still asked the student to stop, because she felt very good. She asked in surprise what kind of spell this was, because her voice became louder. Lu said that you just need to twirl the stick in your ear. Lu Muan was intrigued and took the cotton swab in her hands, saying that she wanted to try it with him. The student laid his head on the gentle thighs of his mentor. He felt very good. The teacher was preparing to begin the procedure. She clumsily stuck the wand into Lu Chuan's ear, doing the wrong thing. The guy screamed in pain. He screamed that she was pressing too hard and his ear would burst. Lu Muan said in a panic that they urgently needed a nurse. The frog was sitting on the leaves in front of the house. Conversations between the student and the mentor could be heard from the house. The teacher insisted that she would help him. The frog's eyes were surprised, as if she understood something. She stuck out her tongue slightly. It was deep night outside. One of the participants is a brilliant swordsman, and the second is a dark horse, standing out from his surroundings. The battle promises to be interesting. Yu Lingzhao said that Ling Yanbing's victory was not necessary, because Lu Chuan could also have an ace up his sleeve. Lu Muan said to herself in her mind that her disciple had grown in his abilities, so she hoped for his victory. The judge announced the start of the final match between Lin Yanbing and Lu Chuan. The battle was expected to be interesting. The girl with emerald eyes told the enemy that his blade cutting through the air was strong. The yellow-eyed young man answered his rival that the blade of icy rain also struck. The judge asked them to stop talking and finally start fighting. After these words, the rivals rushed from their seats. Their speed was so high that it seemed as if their heels were sparkling. Both opponents were professionals in fencing. The sound of blades hitting each other hit my ears. Lu Muan wondered if Ling had decided not to use the blade intent. Ling Zhao said the correct placement of body parts is also important. Lin Yanbing was absolutely calm during the fight. She decided to use one of her techniques. The spectators were shocked as Lu Chuan took advantage of the blade formation. Lu Muan was worried about the student. Lin Yanbing did not give up trying to pierce the enemy with her blade, but nothing worked. At one point, one of her attempts almost became successful. With the tip of the blade she almost touched the young man's head. But Lu Chuan's skill was no worse than her own. He sternly placed the blade, preventing her from striking. Lin Yanbing did not show any emotion, but still realized that the enemy was not as weak as they said. Lu Chuan repelled the enemy's attack with a sharp swing of the blade. The girl flew back a few steps. The spectators were very surprised and at the same time delighted with the young man. They didn't understand how he succeeded. Someone shouted that if the guy had missed by even half a centimeter, he would have already become a dead man. Ling Yanbing used one of her powerful techniques. Lu Muan was very worried about the student and asked him to be careful. Lu Chuan himself was surprised, but took advantage of the blade's formation, as a result of which he created a barrier and stopped the enemy's onslaught. The barrier emitted a very bright yellow light that blinded the eyes. Ling Yanbing was unable to strike her opponent. Yu Lingzhao was dumbfounded and wondered if he was really capable of such a thing. Lu Muan was as surprised as she was. Lin Yanbing thought about what it looks like. He can prevent her attack, but she, in relation to him, cannot. The girl made a quick decision and used the frost cut technique, hoping to finish off the boy. But Lu Chuan was not a timid person, so he also made a quick decision so as not to give in to her, but the unexpected happened. He grabbed the blade tightly, waiting for the right moment to counterattack his opponent, but his blade broke. The audience heard strange sounds. Someone shouted that it was an extremely weak attack, one that could cost lives. Lin Yanbing asked the enemy if he wanted to change weapons. Lu replied that yes, because a broken blade would be difficult to use. The young man calmly said that it makes no difference whether the blade is made of wood or broken. What matters most is his soul. The rival sternly said that there was no time for chatter, since she needed to finish with him as soon as possible. Lu Chuan bravely looked into his opponent's eyes and said that he would do absolutely everything in his power. Ling Yanbing used the moon scythe technique, intending to launch a massive attack on her opponent. The young man sternly exclaimed that the bright day technique was being used. He seemed to be on fire with anger. The rivals looked sternly into each other's eyes. It was as if the two poems were about to merge into one. There was no shortage of anger in the eyes of the opponents. The rivals disappeared from sight. The audience was shocked and wondered if this was the highest skill. The participants were still nowhere to be seen. People began to get nervous because the winner was unknown. Finally, the elements subsided and only a wall of fog appeared. A silhouette was visible from it heading towards the exit. Ling Yanbing came out from behind the foggy wall and said emotionlessly that she would admit defeat. The audience did not understand how it could be possible that she lost. What was even more surprising was that Lu Chuan was not even injured. Clan head Zhou Yufeng looked at this in surprise. Yu Lingzhao's face showed only great shock. Lu said that it was his scratch, so he lost. Lin said that his blade intent is stronger, and she admits defeat. She said that the sun rose in the east, so his technique was too powerful. Her emerald eyes captivated with their beauty. Lu Chuan said that if she had been a little more assertive, he would have been gone. The youth from Shaozhou Peak was declared the winner of the duel. People were delighted, because the young man had won, and it was unlikely that anyone could surpass him, and the Lanhua clan would definitely become great. Lu Muan was happy and said that her young disciple Lu Chuan had finally opened up completely. At Tianlan Peak, meanwhile, they were discussing the recent death of Zhou Yutian. The weather was sunny outside. Ho Tu said that it turns out their brother died innocent. Zhuo Bao said that Uncle Qi had made it clear that they were powerless. Ho warily asked why it was so noisy outside. Many voices were heard outside the window. People on the street were discussing that the clan competition was impressive, and no one could have thought that a Qi refinement period cultivator would defeat everyone. Hua Tu asked the people in surprise whether Lu Chuan really took first place in the clan competition. The man said that he fought against Ling Yaning. Both took advantage of the blade's intent, but Lu was a little stronger. Zhuo Bao said that it was incredible that brother was able to suppress Yanbing. Ho said that he needed to make amends to his brother. They decided to congratulate him when they met. 3 days later, Lu Chuan was in the secret realm at Shaozhou Peak. The young man was busy completing the tasks that the system gave him. He was engaged in the manufacture of weapons. Fencing was at the 6th level, and weapon making was at the 5th. In his hand, Lu held a blade he had made. He said that the Eye of the Void allows you to bypass any lie by looking into the essence. The guy was very thoughtful and focused. In other words, in the future, he would easily be able to see the hidden demon inside the cultivator, if his level does not exceed it. The young man decided to dream up a little and hoped that he could do something else. He represented Lu Muan. But still, he shook his head in different directions and said that he was thinking about the wrong things and it was not right to do that. It was dark and deep night outside, but Lu Chuan didn't even think about going to bed, because he had nothing to do. He used the call because his blade was special, and endowed with a special spirit. Lu said that the blade has its own spirit. Perhaps in the future it will follow the example of the Ice Rain blade and become just as powerful. Lu Muan said in surprise that despite his first place, he needed to continue cultivating so as not to lose his place. But she also assured that he need not worry, because today she will help him discover a new one, namely, laying the foundations. Lu Chuan said in his thoughts that apparently Fong Hongwen gave the pill to the mentor so that she would make a breakthrough, but she decided to give it to him. The young man told himself that he wanted to move to a new period as quickly as possible, so as not to interfere with his mentor's achievement of the Yuanying period in the future. He swallowed his mentor's pill. Lu Muan asked what the effect was. Nothing happened to the young man and he assumed that she was acting slowly. Lu was frightened and asked in a panic if everything had really gone in vain again, but the student asked her not to worry and assured her that everything would be fine. The teacher calmed down slightly and told the student that she really hoped that everything would be as he said. Lu Chuan suggested that the teacher go to a couples training session because he thought that if they were naked, the effect would be better. Lu Muan was embarrassed and said that she had never done this kind of couples training before. The young man laughed and told the teacher that he was joking and the clothes would remain in place. The girl still felt a little awkward. Suddenly, something strange happened to the young man. A blue light began to emit from his eye. It turned out that the transition to a new period had unexpectedly begun. The young man stood in a stupor because he did not know what to do. Lu Muan asked him to concentrate and not pay attention to anything. The student followed her advice. In her mind, she told herself that even though he had taken the breakthrough pill, it could speed up the breakthrough process by about 20%. But Lu Chuan exceeds all her expectations. The guy had a breakthrough and went into the period of laying the foundations. Lu Muan instantly became happy and hugged the student. The young man happily told his mentor that he had succeeded. The mentor looked into the student's eyes with a smile and said in her thoughts that she always believed that he would succeed. She hugged the student again and said she was proud of him. Lu Chuan accepted his mentor's sincere praise. The young man said to himself in his thoughts that he was very lucky, because this pill was considered very valuable for a breakthrough. Lu Chuan told the mentor that the secret realm was about to open, but first he would like to prepare food for her. Lu supported him. Afterwards, the cooking time was over and the ceremonial feast was about to begin. On the table there was a huge number of different dishes prepared by Lu Chuan for the mentor from the bottom of his heart. Lu Muan opened her mouth in surprise. The wonderful aromas of the dishes attracted her. There was indescribable surprise in her eyes. The young man held another plate of food in his hands and asked his mentor to sit down at the table and finally taste his dishes. Lu Muan held a festive firecracker in her hands and asked him to take his time and sit down at the table with her. She clapped the firecracker and congratulated the student. The mentor expressed the hope that in the future he would be pursued by luck and progress. Lu Chuan was very pleased that his mentor treated him so warmly and believed in him. He thanked her for everything. Lu Muan said that of course it will be difficult, but if he encounters any danger in the secret kingdom, he can safely call on her for help. The young man touched the tip of his mentor's nose and suggested that she enjoy the evening and not think about future difficulties. Lu Muan smiled as the young man slightly stained her nose with cream. She agreed to his proposal. The student and mentor began to enjoy the evening. The teacher called Lu Chuan funny and asked him not to move so that she could draw too. Warriors along with cultivators stood in a huge crowd near the magic gate. One of the friends congratulated the main character on first place. Lu looked at his interlocutor with surprise and interest. Lu Chuan told his friend that he was flattered. The guy said that this time many had the opportunity to enter the secret kingdom. There are also people in the Yang family whose ancestors were immortals. At this time, the mentor raised his hand up and activated the spell. Colored lightning appeared. Several colored lightning bolts rose up and a large fire circle appeared. Multicolored lightning flew to the side and hit the gate. Someone said that the secret kingdom was open and invited everyone to come. The friend turned to the main character and invited him to joyfully stick together. One of the warriors was excited. He shouted to his mentor that he was coming. A man with a wooden hat on his head stopped the main character. He wanted to tell him something. The mentor handed the guy a small bottle. The main character was surprised. Li Chuan was very happy because the man gave him a special medicine. He looked at the bottle joyfully. The main character decided that he could take care of everything without any problems. He said out loud that Duan Hai has a very good mentor. The cultivators stood on the hill and inspected the forest. Someone said that there is very powerful energy in this secret kingdom. It can be compared to the cave of the immortals. The guy offered to find a place to stay for the night. Suddenly a magical bird appeared in front of people. The friend told the surprised protagonist that he would soon see everything for himself. The cultivators flew from above on the bird. The guy happily said that it was much better than walking. Both warriors joyfully flew on a huge bird. They were very delighted. The warrior looked at the flying birds and thought that there was a gap between them. People approached the mentor near the magic gate. Guards stood nearby. The man saw a girl approach him, accompanied by her guards. The mentor called his interlocutor Elder Lu. He explained that he had business to do. He needs to prepare for the reopening of the secret kingdom in half a month. Liu turned around and walked to the side. She said she would keep the people safe and sound. The mentor told Elder Xiao that he could also go. At that time the old man jumped up above the ground and held a magic ball in his hands. The man asked in fear, "Why does he need a mirror heart?" The old man very angrily shouted to his interlocutor to shut up. The mentor told his warriors that everything was so and they were on the right path. Suddenly one warrior began to turn into a demon. The soldier nearby was scared. The warrior's body became huge. He very quickly became like a monster. The mentor was scared. He shouted to his subordinates to grab the monster. The warriors used magic spells against the demon. The man said that the head was right. Demonic cultivators mixed with the teams. The mentor said to himself judiciously that he had guessed correctly. The leader told his strictly subordinates that they needed to put guards at both entrances. First they need to get rid of the rats outside and then they will go inside. The main character looked at nature with his friend. The guy said that his mentor said that the secret kingdom had been closed for a long time. There are many monsters stored inside. Lu said that the monsters are not felt at all. The friend replied that perhaps there was something wrong with the monsters. The weak could give way to the strong. The main character saw a huge footprint on the earth. He said that there might be powerful monsters here that would frighten away the weaker ones. At this time, a very loud animal cry was heard far from the forest thicket. Lu Chuan thought about it. he said excitedly that perhaps the animals were rubbing off on each other. The friend told his companions that they would see what was happening there. People saw how a huge demonic bear fought among themselves against a predatory tiger. Lu said that the beasts are very similar to a tiger and a panda. The friend replied that the beast was of the 4th rank. For this reason, the remaining monsters fled. The main character said that he wants to help. A friend told the main character that it is better to wait until someone wins. The warrior explained that the beast was at the peak of the 4th rank. They won't be able to cope even with 3 of them. The main character stood next to the predators. He said he didn't want to look at it. Lu added that he saw a national treasure and couldn't just abandon it. The tiger turned to the side and noticed the people. He looked at them angrily. The soldiers became very worried. They shouted that they could not leave their friend. The cultivators jumped up and attacked the predator with magic. Lu was standing on earth at that time. The main character swung his sword and hit the tiger. He wounded him. Lu Chuan jumped aside. He looked at the amazed predator. Wounds were visible on the tiger's body. The guy got worried. He said scared that the tiger was furious. The main character smiled and told his friend to calm down. Lu Chuan activated a magic skill called Heaven's Cut. A huge sword appeared above him. The sword fell from a height and hit the ground. He struck down a predatory tiger. The main character and his friends were in a mystical forest. Lu Chuan stood in front of a huge bear. The predator looked at people angrily. The guy looked thoughtfully at the bear and said that it looked like he was very angry. The predator looked at the man angrily. People noticed that the bear would not attack them. The warrior said that the bear wanted them to follow him. Lu answered his friend that the predator is different from other animals. People together with the bear entered a huge cave where the predator lived. The warriors noticed a small bear cub hiding in the cave. He was very scared. The guy said that bear wanted to entrust his child to them. Another warrior said that the bear's life was coming to an end and so he decided to leave his cub for them. The warrior said that bears are not very ferocious. If raised, they can be an excellent companion. Lu Chuan gently took the bear cub into his arms. He wanted to give him a new name. One of the friends suggested naming the little bear after Jojo. At this time, a group of warriors led by Elder Lu was in the forest. The girl looked carefully into the magic amulet. One of the warriors was unhappy that the demonic cultivators were not caught immediately at the entrance. The subordinate told Elder Lu that this place is finished. He asked her what to do next. The girl replied that she would go further to the southwest. Unexpectedly, the elder turned to the side and called the name of the main character. Lu was sitting in a cave with his friends. One of the guys told the main character that he knows everything, can do everything and is even a good cook. There was a huge cat lying in the cave. The little bear fell asleep next to her. People sat near the fire and fried food. One of the friends said that their animal skills are not limited to simple food. A huge cat lay and fed the bear cub. The guy said that the bear cub would grow up a little and wean himself off the breast. Main character with interest asked your friend if he can help him study spirit beasts. The warrior explained to his friend that they were from different clans. If they pass on their unique knowledge to someone else, then the elders may find out about it. The guy told the main character that his clan should also have books on the art of training spiritual beasts. He must look for something. Lu Chuan agreed with his friend. The guy said sadly that if everything was fine with Brother Cho, he could be sitting next to them now. The main character said thoughtfully that he was unable to meet the real Zhou Yutian. He said that maybe he would have become friends with this person. The warrior thought to himself that even the fake Zhou Yutian behaved very friendly. A real Zhou would perceive Lu Chuan in the same way. Unexpectedly, the friends were very scared. They called the main character in pitiful voices. Lu couldn't understand what happened to the guys. Lu picked up a magical amulet. He could not understand what happened to his mentor. The main character saw on the map where his mentor was located. Late in the evening the girl stood on the stone cliff. Below it was a magical forest. The mentor said that not a single demonic cultivator was found in this place. This was not good news for her. If demonic cultivators get into the main cave, there will be trouble. The girl heard someone approach her from behind. She turned around in fear. The girl asked the main character how did he end up here. Lu explained that he saw his mentor nearby and decided to approach her. The girl hit him on the head with displeasure. The mentor explained to the guy that this place was very dangerous. He couldn't walk around here at night. Lu said that he used a talisman that hid his energy. The girl sternly told her interlocutor not to commit such rash acts again. Lu answered the girl that he understood everything. The mentor looked in surprise at the huge piece that the guy brought her. She asked the student in surprise, did he really come to feed her? The main character explained to the girl that he prepared meat from the monster, which he killed with his own hands. The girl was surprised by this answer. The mentor said displeasedly to the guy that he was very naive. The main character invited the girl to try the food. The interlocutor asked the main character not to behave so stupidly again. At this time, in the secret kingdom, someone flew from the sky to the entrance to the cave. There were warriors standing around the stone. Leader asked if the connection was set up. The subordinate explained that the blood spirit mirror did not react. He added that Mr. Qianmian had not arrived yet. One of the warriors said that the south side fortress is much closer than this. He added that it would take half a day to get there. The fighter said that something could have happened to Qianmian. The leader told his subordinates that even if they could not contact Qianmian, their plans remained. Tomorrow at dawn he will rush into the cave. The seal must be removed before the secret kingdom closes. The main character was with his mentor in the forest late at night. The main character told the girl that the time had passed for him to return. The teacher became worried. As she said goodbye, she told the guy to be careful. The main character grabbed his interlocutor's hand. He said that he needed something from her for good luck. The girl was amazed at the request she heard. She looked at the main character in surprise. The main character recalled how he took a pink scarf from her hands from a surprised girlfriend. Lu Chuan touched his face thoughtfully with a handkerchief. He thought to himself that he felt much calmer with the talisman from his mentor. The main character took the bear cub with him in his arms. The guy told his friend that after the spirit realm was closed, he needed to acquire a spirit beast ring as soon as possible. Panda bear is growing very quickly. Chu Lan and his friend flew on large birds. The guy said that he could ask the elder of the inner gate about raising a panda. The main character turned around and thanked his friend. The guy slyly told the main character to drop his politeness. The warrior looked around and said with surprise that not a single monster was visible. Lu Chan said judiciously that if there are no low-rank monsters, then it is better not to go down. The main character and his friends gradually approached the ground riding on birds. The warriors, after landing, descended from their magical huge birds. The main character asked his bear cub named why is he making noise? The friend was surprised that Lu very quickly gave a name to his animal. One of the warriors, in surprise, picked up a huge snake scale from the ground. The warrior looked carefully and said that the scales belonged to the fiery snake. It is described in the Book of Strange Monsters. The guy was scared. He shouted that the fire snake scale is a very dangerous monster after it reaches rank 4. The warrior said thoughtfully that the monster was already an adult if he rose higher. The warrior was scared. He shouted that there was no way they could handle the monster. He wanted to run away. The main character grabbed his friend by the clothes. The warrior was holding a piece of snake scale. He said she must be in the molting stage. Lu Chuan said slyly to his friend named Zhua that he wanted to say that the snake was now weakened. This means they can try to defeat the monster. Zhua said that first we need to check everything in the sky. He reminded the main character that after the last accident with Zhou, a bad feeling did not leave him. The warrior told his friends that he would rather die in battle now. Zhua shouted to his friends that he wanted to continue cultivating now. This will help him prevent the tragedy that happened to Zhou. The guy shouted very joyfully that he needed to fight for his life. He added that he wanted to see with his own eyes how he would reach the very limit. The main character said joyfully to his friends that they needed to take a short break. After that they will go on their way. The warriors saw a huge snake. The guy said in fear that this monster has much stronger energy than a 4th-rank tiger. Zhua judiciously said that the snake could completely encircle the mountain in a few days. After that, only the elders can defeat her. The main character invited his friends to vote. If the majority of them support the proposal, they will go on the offensive. Lu told his friends joyfully that no one was going to give up yet. He assured them that they still had a chance to become immortal. Zhua told his friends sternly that they would fight a rank 5 monster. He added that the most effective formation needed to be activated. Zhua raised his hands up and activated a magic skill called Gold Formation. The snake hissed angrily. She was hit very hard by a magic spell. The monster turned around and looked at the people angrily. He prepared to attack them. The guy said in surprise that the family did not weaken after the spell, but only became stronger. The monster screamed very angrily and loudly after being attacked by Zhua. The exhausted warrior shouted to the main character that he could no longer hold back the monster for long. Lu Chun excitedly shouted to the guy that he understood everything. He flew to the rescue. The main character jumped up and swung his sword in flight to hit the large snake. The monster felt the blow. He turned sharply towards the man. The snake screamed angrily and hissed at the guy. Lu Chuan prepared to defend himself. The warrior shouted excitedly as he began to activate his shield of gold. The main character accelerated, in order to once again attack the snake in flight on a grand scale. After a powerful blow from the warrior, the monster fell to the ground with a swing. The abbess was on the ground. She performed magic spells. On the ground lay the bloodied and lifeless large body of a wolf. The girl turned to the side and said that she saw rank 5 energy. The abbess sharply pushed off the ground and flew across the sky into the forest thicket. The girl said that the source of spiritual power fluctuations comes from this place. She approached the altar. The abbess touched the altar and said that she did not see any magical formation here. She also did not find the spiritual stone. The girl thought. She decided to immediately use spiritual power. Suddenly the abbess became frightened. She noticed how the altar came to life. The warrior from the mirror said that his name is Yushur. He and his companions entered the secret kingdom. You told the girl to come to the Qingxian Hall and release her blood. He added that the time of Mr. Shura would soon disappear. The abbess realized that she saw the warrior wearing a cultivator costume made of a golden snake. The abbess thought. She had never heard before the names that Yushur told her in the mirror. The girl thought. She realized that all those people she heard about were demonic cultivators. The main character and his friends continued to fight the monster near the mountain. The wounded Zhua told his friend that he would continue to support him. The snake angrily turned around and prepared to attack the people. Lu Chuan swung the sword in his hands. Lu swung his sword. He prepared to strike the huge snake. The main character hit the monster with his sword with all his might to finish it off. Zhua fearfully warned his friend that the monster was preparing to release a demonic pill. The predator began to release dangerous lilac pills from his mouth against people. The main character dodged a huge pill flying at him in time. Zhua jumped up to help his friend. He shouted for Lu to move aside. The snake struck Zhua. He was very badly wounded. His friend became very worried and scared. The warrior was unhappy. He couldn't protect his friend. The guy shouted to Zhua that he would take revenge for him. The guy remembered that his mentor once told him that he was very bad at fencing. If he promotes his skills, he will have a chance to protect the people dear to him. The guy activated a protective spell. Burning hands appeared above him. The warrior used a magical skill called the Fist of the Mountain against the snake. The main character looked at his friend in surprise. He realized that he too could use the same spell. The guy angrily shouted that he also wanted to try something in order to protect his friends. The main character excitedly shouted to his friend that he was completely right. He swung his sword. Lu Chuchan struck a huge snake with a full swing. He shouted that he had succeeded. The warrior sat down near his wounded friend. He said that Zhua suffered because of him. The main character said that he would examine the wounded guy. Lu Chuan thought to himself excitedly that his friend sacrificed himself for them. He said out loud that he needed to find an antidote for Zhua. The main character and his friend turned back. They noticed a demonic pill lying on the ground. At the same time, near the southern gate of the secret kingdom, the girl communicated with the abbess. The interlocutor was surprised because the demonic cultivators wanted to make a sacrifice in 3 days. The abbess explained that she, too, was puzzled. She added that all this could be somehow connected with Zhou Yutian. The girl said that perhaps Qian Mian had possessed him. Girlfriend grabbed the abbess by the chest. The abbess said displeasedly to her interlocutor that she was talking about serious things here. At parting, the girl said that she needed to report everything. She advised that the abbess take care of her student. The girl jumped up. She shouted to the abbess that it was time for her to leave. The teacher closed her eyes. She told herself that she was in a lot of pain. At that time, a girl flew from the sky and landed on the top of the hill. The girl said to herself that she felt Lu Chuan's energy here. She decided that the guy had become stronger. The girl looked at the remains of the snake. She told herself that thanks to the golden core, she had a decent ability, but the maximum for her remained a rank 4 monster. The warrior remembered that the protagonist's cultivation base was much lower. She couldn't understand how Lu Chuan was able to defeat a rank 5 monster. The girl thought. She told herself that she would like to fight the guy again. The main character at that time with his friends was flying on huge birds into the gorge. Zhua and his friend thanked the main character for saving him from death. Lu turned around and told his friends to take care of themselves. He added that he was able to help them thanks to the demon pill. Zhua thought joyfully to himself that the pill would help the main character break through in the future. Lu noticed how the bear cub extended its paws to the pill. Zhua said that their journey went very smoothly except for the rank 5 monster. The guy happily said that they would now have access to very powerful treasures. Zhua said that the cave of the fallen dragon is a bad place. Many people died in this place. He reminded his friend that the elder had said not to enter this place. The guy looked thoughtfully at the warrior and said that he had heard something about it. Lu Chuan told his friends that they would first get out of here and then return to the cave of the fallen dragon. At this time, a huge pink beam hit from the sky in the direction of the cave. People were very scared, they could not understand what they were seeing in front of them. The cave lit up very brightly pink, the people on top of the birds were very scared. Friends shouted to the main character that now they need to quickly fly forward. The main character could barely stay together with a bear cub riding a bird. The guy felt that he could no longer fly further. A pink barrier appeared in front of him. Friends were scared, they looked fearfully at Lu Chuan, who remained behind. The main character remained in the gorge. He could not get past the thunderstorm barrier. The friends called out to Lu Chuan in fear. Main character stood in a gorge in front of a pile of stones. He saw a huge pink barrier in front of him. Lu Chuan thought excitedly to himself that the path ahead was blocked in front of him. Mountains are collapsing. The guy looked at the beam of energy in front of him. He decided that there might be spiritual treasures inside. The main character saw how particles of gold appeared in the green beam. He decided that he was seeing a quality spiritual treasure. Lu Chuan thought to himself that after training, the thing becomes a magical weapon. The main character told himself that it was all a hoax. He decided that something had happened in the center of the Tai Kingdom. On the mountainside, warriors fought against a dangerous predator. They used magic. The abbess did not know where to go. She heard one of the warriors shout that no one could do it faster than them. The girl exhaled in a relaxed manner. She thought about the recent battle of the elders. The abbess remembered that 3 days had already passed and all the elders had been notified. The girl confidently decided to herself that she needed to stop them. She jumped high up and wished the main character to be careful. The main character at that time stood alone in the gorge. He didn't know how to get out of there. Lu Chuan said to himself that the secret realm had been open for 4 days. He didn't have much time to explore everything. He decided that if he looked for the others, then all this would drag on for a long time. The main character decided that he would act alone. Suddenly a girl flew up to him from above. The girl called the main character by name and came down from above. He was very surprised. Lu Chuan was surprised and called his interlocutor sister. He didn't understand how she got here. The girl stroked the bear with her hand. The guy asked his sister if she had teamed up with others. The girl replied that others were afraid of her, that's why she walks alone. Lu Chuan told the girl that she was very talented. He explained that others were afraid of her and therefore did not interfere. At this time the girl stroked the bear cub. The sister seriously looked at the guy and suggested that he team up with her. The main character realized that he needed to agree to the girl's proposal. He silently asked for forgiveness from his friends named Zhua and Hua. The main character grabbed his girlfriend's hand. He said it would be a great honor for him. Lu told the Lin girl that it would be difficult for them to pass through the opening due to the wind. Because of this they need to do something. The girl promised her friend that she would protect him. The main character looked with great excitement at the huge stones that were in front of him. Lu told his girlfriend that the stones were just the weakest level of protection. Further lies something more extensive. The main character carefully examined the obstacle in front of him with the help of a special gaze. Lu Chuan noticed a glowing pentagram in front of him. He studied her carefully. Lin asked her friend with excitement, what happened to his blade? The main character answered the girl that the blade was broken. For this reason he redesigned it a little. The girl looked at her friend with great attention. She said that she understood everything. Lu Chuan invited his girlfriend to act together. They needed to figure it all out. Lin took out her sword. The bear cub climbed onto her back and wrapped her paws around her. The main character and his girlfriend extended their swords forward and prepared to attack. The spell gave power and the barrier was destroyed. The guy shouted joyfully that they had broken through. Lu Chuan told his girlfriend that if the mountain was new, they would have had an easy time with it. After that, the guy put his hand to his girlfriend's hand, he gave her something. Lu told the girl that she had not yet fully recovered from her injury, he gave her pills to help her recovery. Lin looked at your friend with attention and confirmed that he said everything correctly. The main character told his interlocutor that they were on the same team, he asked her not to be overly polite. The guy asked his interlocutor, does she really want to leave him here? Lin looked at her friend with excitement, she wanted to explain everything to him. The main character told the girl that the secret kingdom is filled with various dangers, he may not be able to do it alone. Lu Chuan asked Ling if she really wanted to watch his death. Lu Chuan put a pill in his girlfriend's mouth, he told her not to behave so politely again. The girl happily thanked the guy, a cheerful teddy bear was sitting on top of her. Lu told his companion that they didn't have much time, he explained that it was time for them to hit the road. Lin looked after her friend cheerfully and mysteriously, she decided to go with him. The main character and his girlfriend were sitting in a hut, he told her that the center is different from other places, in this place the energy is much more powerful. Lu cooked food over the fire, the girl told her friend that she didn't think he could do such a thing, the main character explained that he likes to cook. The main character asked his girlfriend how she tasted meat. Lin was very pleased, she said she thought the food was wonderful. The main character joyfully told the girl that he had finally seen her smile. The girl was very puzzled, she didn't expect such compliments from her friend. The main character told his surprised girlfriend that she was young, but very rarely smiled. Lu told the girl that if she smiled more often, people would understand that she was also a human being. Lin was very surprised and amazed because the guy called her young, she remembered to herself that she was already 16 years old. The main character and his girlfriend moved through the air. Lin told the guy that in front of them was the cave of the fallen dragon, she asked if he wanted to take the spiritual treasure from there. The main character said that along the way he met monsters with herbs from cultivators, he decided that someone was deliberately using the energy of the spiritual treasure to lure them into a trap. The girl asked the guy, why do they continue on their way? Lu Chuan told his girlfriend that they had come a long way, so they have no way back. The main character told the girl that in the cave of the fallen dragon it would be difficult for him to protect her, he invited her to part ways in this place. Lin told the main character that he was going forward bravely, she can't give back. Lu Chuan was delighted with the girl's answer. The main character joyfully told his girlfriend that he saw in front of him the cave of a fallen dragon. After the flight, Lu Chuan and the girl landed in the flower glade. The main character told the girl to follow him as carefully as possible. Suddenly a menacing cry of some animal was heard from ahead. Lu Chuan told the girl that he would try to fight the monster. The main character told the girl that there was a fourth-rank monster ahead, he warned his girlfriend that they might attract the attention of demonic cultivators. A menacing and predatory boar was running at full speed towards the people in front of him. The predatory beast very quickly rushed past the main character and the girl. The main character asked the girl in surprise, isn't she afraid? Lu I asked the girl with excitement, why is she so excited? The main character realized with displeasure that his girlfriend was affected by pollen. Lin looked sternly at the guy and called him a mentor, she asked why he was here. Lu decided that his girlfriend was hallucinating. The main character grabbed the girl's hand, he said they needed to find a place where he could help her get rid of the pollen exposure. Lu Chuan put the girl on a hill and hid her under a special magic ball. The main character told his girlfriend that she is now hidden from everyone, he explained that now neither monsters nor people would hear him. The guy noticed that the girl closed her eyes and began to breathe rapidly. Lu Chuan was very shocked, he couldn't understand what Lin was doing now. The girl was completely disconnected from reality, sweat appeared on her face. The girl remembered how her mentor once forced her to drink during the heat. The girl was sitting on her knees, the main character repeated to himself that he should not look at his girlfriend. At the last moment, Lu Chuan said to himself that he could cast an effect on himself, he felt that he had no strength. The main character looked ahead, he heard from afar, as if someone was calling his name. The guy suddenly found himself in the hospital and sat on the bed, a nurse stood next to him. The girl with glasses told the main character sternly that there was no need for embarrassment. The main character looked in front of him in surprise, he didn't understand what it all meant. The nurse approached the guy and sternly told him to lift his pants. Lu Chuan thought to himself in fear that he might be in a dream. The girl sternly asked the guy, does he really think his teacher is incompetent? She explained that this was the second time Lu had injured his knee and was not trying to repair it. The nurse pulled down the protagonist's trousers and looked carefully at his wound. The girl began to lubricate the wound with a special product. The main character suddenly screamed loudly. The nurse told the guy sternly that he might feel pain. The main character grabbed his leg. He shouted in fear to his mentor that he had made a mistake and would not do it again. Lu Chuan was cowardly and delirious. He shouted to his mentor that he would not do it again. At this time people arrived in the cave. They found the bodies of animals there. Near the entrance to the cave lay a huge number of bloody corpses of wolves. The cultivators were able to neutralize the dangerous warriors in black clothes and tie them up. The guy told the man displeasedly that there were traces of demonic cultivators on the paths. Their guesses can be considered correct. The girl looked carefully at her talisman. She kept thinking about the main character. The abbess realized that she now needed to go to the cave of the fallen dragon. The girl thought, she didn't know what to do with the main character. Deep in the cave of the fallen dragon on Lake Sengan, a meeting of warriors was taking place. Yanshi asked her subordinates, "Where are the others?" One of the warriors told Lady Yanshi that the elders of the 5 clans were patrolling everywhere in the secret kingdom. They check everyone who comes there. He reported that they had lost many allies. Yan very angrily shouted at her subordinate to drop the words. The angry lady shouted to the soldiers that they could not do even a simple thing. The warriors bowed to the lady and asked her to have mercy on them. One of them said that they did not know the goals and motives of the main 5 clans. They are afraid that they will be found out. The lady took off the mask from her face. One of the subordinates said that their enemies noticed even before they entered the secret realm. The girl angrily asked, "Is there really a rat among them?" The warrior said that among them, only Lord Qian Mian maintained contact with the Lanhua clan. The guy fearfully explained that Mr. Qian Mian could only be detected with the help of a person during the transformation period. The warrior asked displeasedly, "Are there really people in this area who could have been in such a period?" The lady shouted that regardless of the discovery of their plan, they must keep Mr. Ashura safe. The girl said that if something really happened to Qian Mian, then Mr. Ashura will appoint a replacement for him. Outside Qianlong Lake, a man sat on a hill and meditated. He didn't understand why his father made him sit here. He thought to himself that he could achieve greatness if he engaged in demonic cultivation. Someone approached the man from behind and asked if he was a demonic cultivator. The cultivator felt as if someone was holding a sword to his throat from behind. The man smiled and asked Lin to put the weapon away. The main character invited the cultivator to chat. Lu Chuan handed the man a red pill and told him to eat it. The main character told the man that the pill destroys bones. In an hour all his insides will be burned. The cultivator excitedly asked the protagonist for an antidote. Lu Chuan asked his interlocutor how many cultivators are there near Qianlong Lake. The man answered in fear that there were more than 30 people near the lake. The main character asked the man if they really wanted to catch all the cultivators in the area with so many people. The man said excitedly that they had already activated the formation. Even a person with a Yuanying period cannot log in through their information. He added that after the sacrifice, Lord Ashura could be reborn again. After this, even the owner of the Yuanying period will not be able to rebel against the master. The main character said judiciously that if the Yuan holders cannot cope, then they can call other elders. The man said angrily that it was too late to stop their plan. Lu Chuan angrily told his interlocutor that he was poisoned and had nothing to worry about anymore. The man scaredly shouted to the guy that he was just a low representative of demonic cultivators. He added that he would not have harmed anyone if it had not been for his father. The main character asked his interlocutor if he had an extra suit. The man was very surprised. He did not understand what the main character wanted from him. Lu Chuan and his companions arrived at the entrance to Qianlong Lake. The man asked the guy and the girl in fear if they were afraid that they would be exposed. The cultivator said in fear that if the truth came out, he would be finished. Lu Chuan said with a smile to the man that he should cooperate with them. The main character told the girl that she was very nervous. He added that if she was so vigilant, they would quickly be discovered. The main character saw a crowd of demonic cultivators in front of him. The old man asked the man what kind of people were standing next to them. Why didn't they happen before? The interlocutor told the 9th uncle in fear that his comrades from the Golden Snake clan were next to him. These guests also wanted to attend. The lady sat on the throne and angrily asked the guests, did they also decide to pay tribute? The guests fell to their knees in front of the girl on the throne. They said they worshipped. Madam asked the man why the girl cultivator came to them. The man answered the lady that the guests had long been carried away by demonic forces, so they really wanted to meet her. The man wanted to justify himself to Lady Yan Shi. He reported that the guests entered the secret kingdom from another entrance. The lady cut off her subordinate's head with a flourish. Yan angrily shouted to the guests that they could not easily deceive her. She explained that she did not sense the Golden Snake clan's energy from them. Also, the people who came did not have the energy that comes from the pills that their clan takes. The mistress angrily shouted to her subordinates to catch the uninvited guests. The main character and his girlfriend were scared. Lu Chuan and the Ling girl began to swing their swords in all directions, fighting off their enemies. Yan looked angrily at her guests. She told them that they could become real guards. Lu Chuan shouted back angrily to the girl so that she wouldn't even dream. Lin swung her sword to finish off the lady sitting on the throne. Yan was absolutely not afraid. She sat and laughed evilly at the guests. The lady angrily told the people that if they decided to die, then she would do them a favor. Yan activated the spell and launched dangerous and predatory demons against people. Yan said angrily that the ghosts are in the Golden Core period, therefore people will not be able to withstand their abilities. The lady set her ghosts on people and shouted that they would die. Lin used her sword to fight off the attack of demonic creatures. Lu Chuan pierced the ghosts with his sword. He shouted to his girlfriend to watch out. The main character and the girl continued to fight off the attacking monsters. Lu Chuan thought excitedly to himself that he needed to hold on so as not to reveal his secret. The main character and his girlfriend pushed off from the ground and disappeared into the heights. The subordinate shouted to the mistress that the people had escaped. He asked what should they do. Yan Shi said angrily that people were able to get here. Something worse will happen next. The mistress indicated to her subordinates that they needed to continue preparing for the sacrifice. Mr. Ashura must be released as soon as possible. A search party of the Manhwa clan stood near the entrance to the cave. One of the warriors said that the source of the outbreak was located in this place. The mentor said that the stone shows that the main character is somewhere nearby. She didn't understand why the guy was nowhere to be seen. The main character and his girlfriend found themselves in a dark cave. They were looking for students there. The girl told her companion that there must be captured students nearby somewhere. The guy stopped. He noticed how tied people were sitting on the ground next to him. The warrior shouted very loudly to his companions that he had found the disciples. The bound disciples asked people for help. Their energy was drained. The guy stretched out his hand and tried to untie the ropes on the students' bodies. The warrior screamed loudly in pain. He had burn wounds on his body. Suddenly a huge red portal appeared at the top. The girls screamed in fear. The girl with green hair was scared. She did not understand what she was seeing in front of her. The abbess was very surprised. She didn't understand what was the matter. A huge pentagram appeared from the red portal. Frightened people stood and watched. Madame Yan said angrily that the cultivators of the 5 major clans still dared to enter here. The abbess shouted that they were seeing the Yang Shi in front of them, about which they had been warned before. The lady told her interlocutors that apparently Qian Mian told them about her. The abbess asked Yan, why does she want to make a sacrifice? The lady answered the cultivators that they caused a lot of problems. Zhao looked angrily at her rivals and said that they needed to fight. The lady angrily replied that she was really looking forward to the fight with the cultivator. The demonic warriors accelerated and rushed to attack the cultivators. Zhao took a fighting stance. She prepared to repel the attack of her rivals. The girl swung her hand and repelled the attack of the demonic warriors. The lady noticed that the cultivators were able to repel the attack of her warriors. Yan extended an evil hand to her rival and shouted that she was very interested. Zhao excitedly noticed how another demonic warrior was rushing towards her. The ghost swung to attack. The girl turned away in time. Zhao hit the demon with all her might with a swing of her hand. He fell down. Zhao was very worried. She could not understand what kind of demons were in front of her. The girl was scared. She realized that the ghosts in front of her were very dangerous. Suddenly Zhao heard a scream next to her. She turned around in surprise. Huge red tentacles appeared in the cave. People got scared and prepared to run away. The abbess stood with a sword in her hand. She said this is the beginning of the sacrifice. The girl felt how red tentacles began to engulf her from all sides. The abbess chopped the tentacles with her sword. She shouted to her friends that the monster's blood could harm them. The girl with the sword angrily shouted that everything needed to be done quickly. She glanced at the mistress. Yen very angrily said that no one could defeat them anyway. A huge demonic warrior appeared. He was in the last stage of the Golden Core period. The lady told the rivals that they should be grateful. The people in front of her would be the victims of such a warrior. The demonic ghost swung his sword and rushed at the people. Zhao shouted in fear that a warrior was fighting against them in the last stage of the Golden Core period. The abbess shouted threateningly to her friend that she would help her. The demon swung his huge sword to hit the girl with it. Zhao looked at her opponent in fear. She prepared to fight him off. The demon was able to injure the girl in a big way. After that he ran to the side. Zhao was seriously wounded in the chest. She didn't have time to defend herself in time. The abbess hugged her friend. She was very excited. The abbess said that they must unite to defeat the dangerous demon. The mistress angrily told her rivals that she found it funny because they wanted to capture her. Yen shouted to the girls that if they want to kill the warrior, then let them die together. The abbess fearfully noticed how her sword hovered in the air opposite her. The girl was floating in the air. She was surprised to notice how blue lightning appeared around her. The lady was unhappy and did not like the fact that she would have to spend so much effort with a girl from the Lanhua clan. Yen angrily shouted that the girl from the Lanhua clan would die now. She prepared to attack her with magic. The mistress prepared to finish off her rival using the technique of 1,000 blows. The abbess jumped high into the air. She shouted to her friend to be careful. The girl fearfully noticed how demonic ghosts appeared behind her. Both girls bravely fought off the ghosts attacking them with their swords. One of the demons accelerated to finish off Zhao with a flourish. The girl became worried. Zhao grabbed the ghost with her hand. She shouted to her friend Muwen to deal with the mistress. The abbess turned to the side and looked angrily at her mistress. Yen called Lao Jiao's name in a quiet whisper. At this time she was looking at the girl. Suddenly a huge warrior appeared behind Zhao. He wanted to attack her from behind. The warrior pierced the girl with a huge blade. She didn't notice anything. The girl shouted to her opponent that he had acted shamelessly. She waved her hand. After this, the warrior swung his huge sword and struck his opponent's hand. The abbess was very frightened. She called her friend in an excited voice. The lady shouted in delight that she could smell the exciting smell of blood. The main character and his girlfriend crawled ashore at that time after falling into the lake. Lu Chuan and the girl were relaxing on the shore. They prepared to move on. Lu Chuan told his girlfriend that after immersing himself in the water, he had some rather strange sensations. Lin told her friend that in order to prevent the demonic cultivators from chasing them, they needed to be careful. The guy asked his girlfriend what she thought. Lin answered her friend that together they would definitely be able to resist the demonic cultivators. Lu Chuan told the girl that he heard a voice calling him. He decided that someone wanted to help them. The girlfriend angrily told the guy that he was lying to her. The main character was puzzled. Lu Chuan pointed his finger to the side and told the girl excitedly that there was something there. On the wall were pictures of various warriors. Lu Chuan asked the girl with interest whether the painted cultivators were similar to these. The guy looked at the wall in surprise. He decided that the warriors depicted on it lived much longer than he thought. Unexpectedly, the guy and the girl noticed how huge stone pillars appeared in front of them. One of them meant a mirror, the second showed generations, and the third meant a seal. The girl was very surprised. She couldn't understand what they had just seen with the guy. Lu Chuan looked with great interest at the pillar that represented the mirror. The main character shouted in fear to his girlfriend to be careful. He grabbed his sword. The guy noticed how the huge stone in front of him began to glow very brightly. Clouds of dust rose around. After this, the activation of the trial version began. Lu did not imagine that there would be a testing site under the lake. He realized that the 3 pillars symbolized 3 trials. The main character thought. He did not understand what the pillar with the inscription about the mirror meant. At this time the guy heard a suspicious noise from the side. He noticed a warrior approaching him. Lu noticed a group of warriors who looked exactly like him. He realized that a copy of the participant was being created to test the ability. The protagonist realized that his clones would not be able to sense his true cultivation rank. The guy thought to himself that such tests are not suitable for demonic cultivators. That's why they need other people. The main character looked excitedly at his girlfriend. He realized that the girl needed help. The girl lay unconscious on the ground. the guy stood up and looked carefully in front of him. The main character noticed a large stone pillar in front of him, which symbolized generations. The guy felt his consciousness being overloaded, memories of different generations surfaced in it. Lu Chuan sat on the ground with his head in his hands, he felt his mind being overloaded. The guy's memory of the secret deeds when he was a mercenary surfaced. The main character told himself that he was not Wei Tsuxin's assistant. The guy shouted to himself that he was Lu Chuan. The main characters caught their breath in fear. Lu told himself that he could barely get out of the illusion, he was still sitting near the huge stone pillars. The main character remembered his past life experience, he did not understand what was hidden in the most difficult level. The guy saw in front of him a reddish stone that hid a seal in itself. Lu Chuan did not understand what the purpose of these tests was. A girl lay unconscious next to him. The main character looked with excitement at the huge pillar in front of him, he realized that the spiritual power was sealed. The guy took a closer look and noticed how a small luminous book appeared in the pillar, he didn't understand what was there. The main character noticed how the Taoist scripture Qing Xian appeared in front of him. The guy decided that during the third test he should try something new. The main character decided to study the book, he knew that it was very difficult for ordinary people to understand, the task is made more difficult by the fact that the spiritual power is sealed. Lu Chuan said happily to himself that he was not an ordinary person. The main character imagined realistically the fighting warriors. Lu Chuan thought to himself that, in fact, such a thing would not be too difficult for him, he decided to study everything without a trace. The protagonist decided that the Taoist scripture Qing Xian could be equated to a reward. Lu Chuan looked to the side at his girlfriend lying on the ground, he called her name. Lin was completely unconscious, the main character silently wished her luck. The girl was in a daydream at that time, she lived up to her reputation and tried to understand the intent of the blade. Lin saw in a dream how she acquired a new technique for wielding a blade, since she lost to the main character, she has not stopped honing her skills. The girl saw in her dreams that she did all this for the sake of marrying the princess. Lin constantly honed her skills for the sake of the guardian of the city gates. The girl fought and improved her skills for the sake of other incarnations. Lin will continue his cultivation path, the Taoist scripture Qing Xian will help her in this. The girl came to her senses, she slowly opened her eyes and looked ahead. The main character asked his girlfriend if everything was okay with her. The girl replied that she was fine. Lu told his interlocutor that they had passed the test. Lin looked at the concrete pillar, she said she had never heard of this place before. The main character told his interlocutor that the answer to their questions was hidden behind. The guy and the girl noticed how the Qing Xian palace stood in front of them. Lu Chuan said in surprise, "Are the demonic cultivators gathered here for the sake of the palace?" Suddenly a voice was heard from inside the palace, the guy got worried. Lu Chuan shouted to the girl that he heard a familiar voice right outside the door. Lin didn't understand what happened to her friend. The main character and the girl opened the door, they saw the outlines of a large monster appear in the darkness. People were frightened and noticed how a huge yellow dragon rushed at them. In the dragon's mouth was a huge yellow pearl, the monster telepathically asked the guy for help. The main character realized that he was seeing a dragon pearl in front of him. The girl realized that someone was really calling the guy. A stranger appeared from behind, he told the surprised people that it was all beautiful. The guy and the girl turned around and saw an old man with a gray beard in front of them. Lu looked at the stranger in amazement, he realized that this person was in a period of emptiness. The old man told his interlocutors that they turned out to be very capable. Lu asked the old man, "Who is he and why is he sitting here?" The interlocutor asked the guys, "Did he really not have any thoughts after all the tests?" The main character asked the old man, "Is he really the owner of the palace?" The interlocutor answered the guy that he guessed everything correctly. After this, the dragon telepathically informed the guy that the old man was lying to him. The old man looked at the dragon and said that this was the very enemy. Lu turned to the side, he decided that the demonic cultivators had gathered precisely because of the dragon, because of him they are planning to organize a sacrifice. The main character thought to himself that the seal that holds a person back in the period of emptiness could collapse. Lu glanced at the old man, he decided that it might be that no one outside could become his opponent. The interlocutor told the guy that hundreds of years ago he was caught in a trap, he is ready to calmly sit down and discuss everything. the dragon telepathically asked the guy for help. The old man angrily asked the guy, does he really want to fight him? Lin told the main character that they could start the battle together. Lu Chuan thought about it. He realized that if he were careless, the threat to life would increase dramatically. He couldn't put his girlfriend in danger. At this time, the girl felt as if some force had shackled her and lifted her above the ground. Lin called the main character very scared. She couldn't move. The girl found herself lying on the ground in the center of the pentagram. The main character asked her for forgiveness. The old man carefully watched everything that was happening. He said he was interested. Lu asked his interlocutor if the demonic cultivators outside had really come for his soul. The old man asked the guy, what will happen if he says that this is not so? The main character said that he had a dream, all his comrades were killed and the clan was plunged into a bloodbath. They were besieged by a huge number of demonic cultivators. The interlocutor answered the guy that it was all just a dream. The guy said that all this made a huge impression on him. He expected that the dream might come true. The main character imagined his girlfriend and decided that all this could become part of the story that is depicted on the wall. The old man judiciously answered the guy that he could always change the course of action. The main character prepared to fight. He said angrily that he didn't want it. The old man shouted to his rival that he would recognize his name. He said that his name was the name of the deity Ashura. The main character swung his sword. He prepared to fight against the old man. The main character fought against Ashur. The old man attacked the guy. Ashur shouted angrily to his opponent that he was distracted all the time. He asked the guy angrily, does he really consider himself stronger? The old man attacked the main character with red lightning. He asked if he was arrogant. The main character stood with a sword in his hand. He shouted to the old man that it wouldn't be easy. Ashur rushed at the guy. He shouted to him that he had great expectations for him. Lu Chuan stood with his sword. He prepared to fight off the attack. The guy very confidently told himself that it was time for him to act. In another place the abbess fought bravely against the mistress. Yen attacked her rival from afar with red lightning. The lady showed the girl the skull. She said that she uses a special technique. It completely drains the spiritual power and blood from the body. All that remains is an empty shell. Yen angrily shouted that she sensed the presence of fresh blood. Someone shouted that they needed to avenge Elder Zhao. The teacher was scared. She realized that her friend Zhao had died and her body was destroyed. The mistress angrily told her rival that she would no longer be able to stop her. Yen very angrily shouted to her subordinates that they needed to move on. The warriors directed red lightning to the side and a large portal opened. Blue lightning appeared from above and warriors began to appear from there. A bright circle lit up high above. There were white lightning bolts around him. The teacher frightenedly shouted to her subordinates to be careful. The lady prepared to attack the cultivators. The mentor shouted to the soldiers to leave. The portal continued to shine above. Yen looked there carefully and prepared to attack. High above the white portal continued to sparkle. Lightning came down from there. The warriors fell screaming from above. A general absorption process began. The abbess was frightened. She didn't know where the main character was now. The lady said joyfully that the shackles were removed. Now nothing will stop her from going further. The abbess thoughtfully said that the main character should be at the bottom of the lake. The Qianlong guy advised the girl that they needed to leave. The abbess shouted to her friend that her student was there. The warrior told Elder Lu that if she acted rashly, she would die. He added that they needed to evacuate in an orderly manner. The girl thought, she could not understand why she had been cultivated in the clan all this time. The abbess thought that she did everything so that the student would feed her delicious food. The girl with tears in her eyes realized that when the main character is in danger, she cannot retreat. Elder Lu said to herself that she had to protect the student, so she won't go anywhere. The girl took off and flew far forward. The guy was left alone. The warrior was very angry. He didn't like that the teacher was very capricious. The mentor flew to her goal. She wanted the main character to wait for her. The girl flew up. She noticed that the bright portal began to change for some reason. The teacher was surprised. She looked in front of her and did not understand what was happening. Elder Lu noticed a huge burning sword flying in front of her. It was as if he had emerged from under the earth. Suddenly the lady screamed in fear. She had a bright glow on top. The teacher was very surprised. She didn't understand what was going on. Yen stood and looked ahead in fear. She realized that everything had gone wrong. The lady did not understand what happened to Ashura. She couldn't believe that the old man lost to the guy. The main character came down from above, he held the sword in his hands, Lin was next to him. The guy looked at the girl below him very joyfully and with a smile. The main character happily told his mentor that he was a disciple of Shaozhu Peak. The main character stood on the edge of the hill and looked in front of him at the mistress hovering in the distance. The abbess told the main character that she was glad that he was doing well. Yen was very angry, she shouted that Mr. Ashura could not lose to the main character. The main character happily said that the old man lay for a long time at the bottom of the lake and his bones became completely decrepit. About an hour ago the main character fought against Ashur. The old man was surprised that the guy fell in just one blow. Ashur with burning eyes angrily shouted to his rival so that he would not blame him for his power. The main character shouted to the old man from the clouds of dust that he had not yet revealed all his trump cards. Lu Chuan jumped up from the ground and flew up. There was a blue glow around him. The main character went through various stages of transformation during the flight. Ashur was very frightened and amazed, he didn't understand how this was possible. The old man activated the spell, he shouted to the guy that no one could stand against him. The main character was in flight, a lot of red demons appeared around him. Lu Chuan held the sword in his hands, he prepared to fight off the ghosts surrounding him. The main character shouted and activated the action of his blade, he prepared to fight back. The guy swung with all his might and struck the old man with his sword. Ashur, in a dying voice, asked the main character with excitement, "Who is he?" The main character told the lady in a calm voice that it would be difficult for him to explain. Yen angrily replied that the old man should have been removed from his position long ago. She added that the guy had cleared a new place for her. The main character asked the lady what is her final goal. He asked, is she really doing everything for the sake of the dragon pearl? The lady looked joyfully at the guy and said that he was smart. Yen added angrily that smart people die quickly. The lady angrily told the guy that the real pearl was in his hands. She demanded that the guy give her the pearl or he would meet his death. The main character asked his interlocutors where they came from and why they decided to resist them. The lady angrily said that they would do anything for the sake of the pearl. She added that no one could defeat Yu Yetian. The main character, along with his girlfriends, was very surprised when they heard about Yu Yetian. The lady looked angrily at the main character and said that he would not be able to do this. The guy looked at Yen very sternly. Blue lightning appeared around his body. Madame angrily asked the main character who he was. I asked my interlocutor if she really thought that it was so easy for him to kill Ashura. The lady looked at the guy angrily. There were blue lightning bolts around him. Yen felt a strong pressure. Yen looked at the guy angrily and noticed that he was in the late stage of laying the foundations. He was in a period of divine transformation. The main character looked at the lady in front of him without any emotion. He was silent. Yan's appearance became very demonic. She shouted to the guy that first she wanted to deal with Ashura herself. She didn't want to touch the guy, but he forced her. Lu Chuan told the girl that she was in the late stage of the divine transformation period. He added that she did not have half the power that Ashura had. The lady angrily shouted at the guy that it was not for him to say this. Her eyes were burning. The main character rushed forward to begin the battle against the mistress. The abbess thought to herself excitedly that she had joined forces with Zhao, but they still could not compete with the Yen Shi. Now the lady has made a breakthrough. Elder Lu thought to herself. She kept thinking about what the main character had experienced. The main character jumped high and flew above the angry lady. Yen landed on the ground. She couldn't believe that this could be possible. The lady looked at the girl. She decided to immediately capture it now. The mistress jumped up and flew towards her mentor to capture her. Yen flew and extended her burning hand towards the girl. The main character appeared on time. He stood and protected the girl with himself. The guy grabbed Yan's hand. The lady was very frightened. She didn't understand where the main character's strength came from. Lu held his mistress's hand with his hand. He squeezed her tighter and tighter. The main character angrily told the lady that she deserved her death. He held her hand. The guy swung his sword. He shouted to the mistress that she did not need to touch the mentor. The main character hit his rival with a powerful blow. Everything around flashed blue. Lu Chuan was able to cut the yang in half with a powerful blow of his sword. The main character cut Lady Yen in half from top to bottom with his sword. The guy felt that a lot of energy was coming from the mistress. He collected red energy into a bag. Lu Chuan said with a smile to his mentor that he shocked her. The girl was very amazed. The guy told his girlfriend that it was all over, so it's time for them to go. he took her hands. Lu Chuan thought to himself that the teacher looked very tired. At this time, the bear cub climbed onto Elder Lu's head. The main character and his girlfriend with a bear cub were outdoors. The sun shone brightly. Lu Chuan looked at the panda cub in the girl's arms. He noticed that the real dragon pearl was hanging around the abbess's neck. The girlfriend excitedly told the guy that she was very worried. The main character answered the abbess that he was able to resist the demonic cultivators thanks to the power of the pearl. Lu Chuan said judiciously that thanks to this, he was able to get into Qingxian Palace. The main character said thoughtfully that the cultivators wanted to make a sacrifice. They needed the pearl, as it contained a large amount of spiritual powers. Lu Chuan told the abbess that it was not his power, but the power of the pearl, therefore he cannot appropriate it to himself. Lin came up from the side. Elder Lu asked the guy in surprise, "Is it true what he said?" Lu Chuan replied that everything was true. At this time the little bear was playing with the pearl. The main character thought to himself that he does not want to reveal the truth. Lin said that pearl's spiritual power is very powerful. She asked the guy how his body held up. Lin thought slyly to herself that the main character was very suspicious to her. The main character said with a smile that perhaps the pearl herself did not want Ashura or someone else to appropriate it for themselves. Lu Chuan added that his cultivation level was low, but his channels were strong. Lu reminded his mentor about the pill she had given him earlier. It was used by a cultivator from the Golden Core period to break through to Yuanying. The girl said thoughtfully to the main character that Zemchuzana chose him because of his physique. Lu Chuan said with confidence in the voice that thanks to the pearl, his level had increased. The mentor told the guy that his cultivation level was growing rapidly. After his fundamentals became strong, he would be able to advance to a higher rank. We need to prepare in advance for the Golden Core period. The main character asked Lin if she took part of the book of the Qingxian Sutra. He asked the girl to share information. Lu Chuan put his hand to the girl's head. He began to read her knowledge. Lin collapsed exhaustedly with her eyes closed. She felt bad. Lu Chuan told the girl that he had added his sutra to her consciousness. Now nothing will interfere with its cultivation. Lin told the guy that his knowledge is a real treasure. She asked why he didn't give her the sutra. The main character told the girl that he had already obtained the dragon pearl, therefore he will not hide the sutra. Lu Chuan told the girl not to worry. He added that he would contact her later for advice. Lin said joyfully to her interlocutor that she would never forget his kindness. Lu Chuan told his interlocutor that they had already discussed everything before. Together they acted as one team. Lin was silent. The main character asked the girl, "Has she really forgotten everything?" Lu Chuan joyfully told his mentor that the Qingxian Sutra could also be useful to her. The main character suggested that the girl find a secluded place and try. There were warriors in the cave of the fallen dragon. They carefully watched the flying monsters. One of them couldn't believe that they were the last ones to survive. He inquired about the patrolling elders. The guy said excitedly that they had lost contact with the five. Another cultivator inquired about Elder Lu. One of the warriors replied that Elder Lu had gone in search of her disciple. Now they don't even know if she's even alive. A warrior approached. He said that he had caught a demonic cultivator. He invited his interlocutors to extract information from the prisoner. The man very excitedly and confidently said that he would help. The warrior said that inside the cultivator's memory there was a palace on Qianlong Lake. It may have been built a very long time ago. The palace contains the dragon pearl. The man said that several centuries ago, the demonic cultivator Ashura entered the secret realm. He needed the power of the dragon pearl. The old man was trapped by the palace, therefore he could not escape. The cultivators decided to release Ashura to get the pearl from him. The guy said thoughtfully that demonic cultivators have been around longer than they thought. He did not understand why sacrifices were needed. The man replied that the prisoner had his further memories blocked. Once they captured all the demonic cultivators, the danger would pass. The leader told his subordinates that they needed to gather all the students and contact the guards. The main character was sitting with his girlfriend. They were busy cultivating. The main character told the mentor to open her mind and relax. A girl with her eyes closed asked the guy, "Is he really going to teach her?" Suddenly the teacher suddenly opened her eyes. Some memories appeared in its creation. The teacher felt the Qingxian Sutra within herself. She saw everything as if in a fog. The girl closed her eyes. She was completely absorbed in the process of remembering. The teacher felt pleasant. her breathing quickened at the same time. The girl felt completely satisfied, a smile appeared on her face. The teacher said joyfully that the Qingxian Sutra ascends to heaven. Thanks to the well-coordinated work of the protagonist and his girls, they were able to destroy the demonic cultivators with the help of the Dragon Pearl. The teacher said thoughtfully that the Qingxian Sutra is a gift from God. She added that now none of the great 5 clans will go against them. The main character told the girl that they needed to moderate their ardor. He warned that they could get into trouble if anyone found out. Near the entrance to the secret kingdom, friends of the main character appeared. They greeted him. The friend shook hands with the main character. He said that he was very glad that nothing happened to him. Ho told his friend happily that he made him nervous. The guy asked Elder Lu, how was she able to get out? And what happened to the demonic cultivators? Lin happily hugged her friend. The abbess told the interlocutor that she would tell about everything later. Now she must report everything to the head. The girl joyfully hugged her student. She said that she was very worried about her. Lin looked at her mentor and said that thanks to the main character, she was not hurt. She added that she could not breathe due to the fact that the girl pressed her to her chest. Cultivators stood near the gate. They noticed with excitement that people would now be coming out of there. The portal opened and people began to enter there. The man stood on the edge of the hill and looked down. The warrior looked down and said meaningfully that many had suffered. The mentor approached the head and said that she wanted to report something to him. Elder Lu told the man that the matter was very important. It needs to be discussed with other chapters. The man told the girl that they needed to change the place to talk. The head said that the main character uncovered the conspiracy. He added that it all looked mediocre. The man said that Lu Chuan is a very good swordsman who can be compared to Ling. The head told the main character that he knows about his exploits in the secret kingdom. He asked the guy to tell him about the details. Lu Chuan answered frankly to the man that he could tell him. The head asked the guy how he was able to achieve recognition of the Dragon Pearl. He asked how Lu Chuan killed Ashura. Lu Chuan said that they had discovered a demonic cultivator. After that, he told how he dived into Lake Qianlong, where he later found a palace. The main character told in detail how he and the girl were able to get inside the palace. Lu Chuan encountered Ashura inside the palace. The Dragon Pearl came to the guy's aid. As a result, the main character joined forces with the Pearl. She had accumulated energy. As a result, Lu Chuan defeated Ashura. Lu Chuan explained to the head that he alone would never have stood up against Ashura. One of the participants in the conversation was unhappy. He slammed his hand on the stone. The man said that the secret church has existed for many years. No one had been able to discover the Qingxian Palace before. Moreover, even the powerful holders of the Yuanying were unable to achieve recognition of the pearl. The main character listened silently. The man asked the guy sternly, how was he able to achieve success with his low level of cultivation? The main character explained that he achieved success with the help of the pearl. He showed the gem on the bear cub. Lu Chuan showed the sparkling pearl to the man and said that it was real. Suddenly the pearl in the guy's hands turned into a huge yellow dragon. The head was very frightened and amazed. He didn't expect the mystical beast to appear. The man couldn't believe his eyes. He realized that the pearl turned out to be real. The girls looked in front of them in fascination. One of them said that there was powerful spiritual energy in front of them. Lu held the bear cub in his arms. He said that the pearl's spiritual energy was previously controlled by Ashura. That's why no one could find her. The main character asked the dragon if the cultivator from Qingxian Palace was evil. The dragon answered the guy that he was absolutely right. Lu Chuan asked the mystical beast if he called him to help him defeat the bad man. The dragon answered the guy that he was a good person. The main character asked the elder if he now believes him. The man angrily told the guy that he needed to look into his thoughts and make sure of everything. The girl asked the man in surprise why he still doubts the guy. She recalled that the man had disdained Shaozhu Peak before. The man said that there is no reason to worry if the main character is telling the truth. The main character hugged his girlfriend. He told his interlocutor with a smile that he could pass any test. Lu Chuan told the man that he could not remain safe if he used his mirror technique. The main character stood in the center of a huge mirror. The man asked the guy if he was a demonic cultivator. Lu Chuan answered in the negative. The interlocutor asked the guy if he had colluded with demonic cultivators. The protagonist replied that he never colluded. The man asked the guy, is it true what he experienced in the cave of the fallen dragon? Lu fell silent. The man told his interlocutors that there were still problems. Someone suggested that the main character is a demonic cultivator. Lu said seriously that he hid his true abilities, which he showed in the Qingxian Palace. He added that his conscience was clear. The main character and his girlfriend were sitting on the roof of a house under the moon. They were like cats. Lu Chuan said in a gentle voice to his mentor that he had done nothing wrong for the Shaozhu peak in the cave. The girl answered the guy that she believed him from beginning to end. The girl asked the guy slyly, could he lose to someone? Lu happily told his mentor that she was beautiful. The main character hugged his surprised girlfriend and said that he was very happy that she appeared in his life. The warrior asked, what about the palace? The man replied that they needed to gain additional strength. He decided that something worthwhile was happening in Qingxian. The mentor reminded the interlocutors that all questions on this topic are taboo. The head said that they were conducting a gathering for the possible involvement of the protagonist with demonic cultivators. Now all suspicions have been removed. The man asked Elder Chen if he was satisfied with the results. Chen replied to his interlocutor that he still very much doubts the authenticity of the dragon pearl. He decided that the pearl should be handed over to higher officials. The girl angrily asked the elder if the representatives of the Yuanying period really wanted to take away the students' gifts. The girl sternly replied that people can do anything to get what they want. Chen said slyly that another reward could be transferred to the main character. The girl told the interlocutors that they had heard the opinion of Elder Chen. The girl took out the order. She explained to the elders that she had transferred the right to use the pearl to the protagonist. Chuan was very unhappy. He didn't understand. Where did the girl get the order from? One of the warriors said that Yuqing Palace is one of the most powerful sections. Elder Yu told strictly that the League would give Lu Chuan compensation of 100,000 spirit stones. The collection will be carried out from the clan treasury. The head was very dissatisfied. He didn't like that he had to get involved with the girl. The main character and his girlfriend joyfully called Elder Yu. After Elder Yu's speech, the Dragon Pearl case was postponed. It's time to discuss issues related to the Valley of Fog. The head stood silently next to Elder Chen. They looked ahead seriously. The main character said that he was looking for information to uncover the conspiracy as soon as possible. The guy told about the Valley of Fog and the clan of the Golden Snake. He added that he had also heard about Yu Yetian. The head said that the enemies used a cultivator from the Golden Snake clan as cover. He added that troops should be mobilized and sent to the Valley of Fog. The main character excitedly told the man that he also wanted to take part. The girl answered the guy that he was at the level of the late stage of laying the foundations. Lu Chuan told the head that he wanted to borrow the power from the pearl. He would be able to fight on par with the cultivators of the Yuanying period. The head told the guy to train more. He added that Lu is the hope for a bright future for the clan. He advised that the guy should not spread information about himself to anyone. The girl told the guy that this task was much more dangerous than the test of the secret kingdom. The main character thought that he could not watch his mentor take risks. Elder Yu invited the main character to fight her. If he holds out, he will be able to participate in the operation without hindrance. The main character, along with the girl and the head, were very surprised by the words they heard. The main character joyfully told his interlocutor that he would accept any punishment if he lost. Elder Yu appeared in full view before her opponent. The girl jumped up. She angrily shouted at the student to try to fight back. The girl hit the guy with her fan with all her might. Lu felt that his rival was strong. The elder swung her hand to hit the guy. She shouted that he was very fast. The main character fought in flight against his rival. The people below watched with interest. Lu Chuan landed on the ground after flying. He prepared to fight back. A yellow dragon appeared above the guy. One of the people asked with interest, "Is the guy really fighting with Elder Yu?" One of the cultivators shouted that the guy was using the power of the Dragon Pearl. The warrior replied that soon Lu would be able to fight with the representative of reincarnation. The main character told himself that he has no right to give his all. The guy looked at his rival. He was afraid that he might hurt her. The main character told Elder Yu that she should act more seriously. The girl shouted to the guy that she just felt sorry for him. Elder Yu shouted to the main character that he would have to stay here. She waved her fan. The main character was holding a sword in his hands. He looked excitedly at his opponent. Lu Chuan cut the girl's combat suit with his sword in flight. After an attack from an opponent, Elder Yu found herself in torn clothes. The head and his girlfriend looked at Elder Yu in great surprise. The girl was very surprised, she didn't expect that she would lose to the guy like that. The elder screamed angrily, she decided to finish off the main character. The teacher rushed to the defense of her student, she shouted to Elder Yu that the main character showed her his strength. The elder displeasedly told her interlocutor to look at what Lu Chuan had done to her. The abbess explained to the girl that now she could rely on the main character. Elder Yu said to herself that she was glad that she did not have such a disciple. Lu Chuan was happy to himself that he had won. In the valley in the mist, in a secret place of the Golden Snake clan, a meeting took place. The subordinate told the lady that Yan Shi had been overthrown. Madam asked if Yan Shi is really gone. The man replied that other members of the clan were also killed. The girl told her subordinate that they needed to send someone to investigate. This will help to find out what happened in the secret kingdom. The main character was in a flying boat, he was heading into the Valley of Fog. The guy had a main mission, he needed to travel to the secret realm and explore the secret cave. He completed it and received rewards from the system. The main character said joyfully to himself that he had received many awards. The guy took the stone in his hand, he wanted to look at a fragment of memories. Lu Chuan looked at the glowing crystal in front of him with great attention. The main character noticed the cave of a fallen dragon in front of him, he stood there with the girl. The girlfriend angrily asked the guy, when will he start being careful? She reminded him that they had to wait for the elders to arrive. The mentor told the guy sternly that he should not forget about her. The main character calmly told his mentor that he did not want to put her in danger. Lu saw himself at a wedding ceremony with a girl, in his mind were the words worship and honor. The main character realized that he was at a wedding and he was the groom. The guy began to wonder who the bride was, he decided to lift the hood over her face. The main character and his wife raised cups of drink in their hands. The guy saw that his mentor was standing in front of him in a wedding dress. Lu approached his mentor, he wanted to kiss her now, the girl was surprised. The main character saw his mentor lying on the bed, she told him to be careful. Lu Chuan angrily stirred himself up, he said he shouldn't think about it. The main character thought, he decided to himself that the mentor was his type. Lu Chuan said happily to himself that he would rather look at the rewards. The main character read the detailed information to himself, he realized that he was, at first glance, in an advanced stage of laying the foundations, its real combat power is in the early stage of fusion. Yu Lingzhao's girl was in her room, she decided that Lin was now very bad without her mentor. The elder said that the main character confused her student. The girl heard someone knock on the door, she asked displeasedly, who came? The teacher ran in, she greeted the elder in fear, you asked the guest what she needed? The mentor said that she wanted to thank her interlocutor for standing up for the main character. Yu said displeasedly that she did not want to help the guy and needed to annoy Elder Chen. The mentor with a smile told her interlocutor that they were on good terms with her. Yu said dissatisfied to his interlocutor that she did not plan to help Lu Chuan, she just wants her student to blow the guy away. The mentor told the elder that she could turn to her for help at any time. Yu told her interlocutor that she could try to reach the Yuanying level, after that she can compete with her. The mentor told her dissatisfied interlocutor that she had already reached the Yuanying period, so she doesn't need to fight anymore. The girl apologized for the trouble, she said she was leaving. The elder angrily shouted at the girl that she was very annoying. The abbess walked and smiled slyly to herself. The main character looked with great attention at the sword that hovered in the air in front of him. Lu Chuan thought to himself that the body of the blade was intact, now it's a full-fledged weapon. The guy said to himself that the time has come for the spirit of the blade to appear, he had no idea what form this spirit would take. Lu Chuan looked at the pearl, he said that she should go inside the blade and become its soul. Pearl was very scared, she shouted to the guy that she didn't want to. The main character told the pearl that he himself was curious about how this spirit would turn out. Lu Chuan asked the surprised pearl what kind of person she was. The yellow precious ball fell silent, he did not know what to answer the man. The unexpected pearl came up with something and joyfully raised her small hand. The pearl jumped up from the main character's hand and unexpectedly kissed him on the head. Lu Chuan was very surprised, he did not expect this from an ordinary pearl. The guy noticed how a magical transformation began around him, blue lightning appeared. The main character was surprised, he noticed how the pearl turned into something. The guy saw in front of him a beautiful girl in the form of a mermaid, he realized that this was the third princess of the Eastern Sea Dragon Palace. The main character saw a princess flying above him, who looked like a mermaid. Lu Chuan looked closely and realized that he saw Princess Aoli in front of him. The main character knew that the girl had escaped from the dragon's palace at a young age. She was injured by a cultivator. After that they wanted to turn the young princess into a slave. She was scared. Then the brave Qing Xian appeared and saved little Aoli from harm. From that time on, Aoli protected the guy. She accompanied him constantly. The main character told the girl that she vaguely remembers the creation of the palace that saved her. The girl fed on the energy of the palace in order to be reborn. The guy told his interlocutor that she was awakened by Ashura. He wanted to gain her strength and favor. The main character said that he read in one book that 10,000 years ago the Chinese sea was erased from the earth. He asked his interlocutor if she lived 10,000 years ago. Aoli said uncertainly that perhaps she lived. The main character asked the girl if she had heard about the immortal Yuhua dynasty. The interlocutor replied that she did not know. Lu Chuan said that the Yuhua dynasty arose on the islands of the East China Sea many years ago. This clan fell apart 1,000 years ago. The girl replied that she didn't know about that. She reported that the inheritance of demonic cultivators was more than 10,000 years old. The teacher came to the door. She asked the student if he was here. The main character quickly hid the pearl. He greeted his mentor at the door with a smile. The guy almost called the girl his wife. He stopped mid-sentence in time. Lu Chuan covered his mouth with his hand. He realized with horror that he had almost called the girl his wife. The mentor silently approached and hugged the main character to her chest. The main character was surprised. He didn't understand why the girl did this. The mentor told the protagonist excitedly that he had been working a lot lately. She promised that she would always be there. The main character thanked the mentor. He was very pleased. Lu Chuan reassured the mentor and said that everything was fine with him. The girl told the guy that she was afraid that he might start engaging in demonic cultivation. The abbess told the guy that he had done a good job in the secret kingdom. Unfortunately, she couldn't come on time and help. Lu Chuan thought that the teacher was the main person in his life. She is like a parent to him. The girl told her interlocutor that he initially planned to team up with his girlfriend Lin in order to thwart the plans of his enemies. He didn't expect his opponents to figure it out quickly. The teacher patted the guy on the head. She said she was very glad that he was okay. The girl told the guy that this time he was going to the Valley of Fog. She added that the main camp of the demonic cultivators was located there. She warned the guy not to act alone. Lu Chuan told the guy that he would do everything as the mentor told him. The girl said in a thoughtful voice that she was very worried. The main character with a smile told his mentor that he understood everything perfectly. The guy grabbed the girl's hand and said that she just didn't want him to get in trouble. The teacher jumped to her feet. She told the guy that it was getting late. The girl turned around and said that she was leaving. The main character was left alone. Lu Chuan thought about it. He said to himself dreamily that it was still light. Main character went to the window. He decided that he needed to prepare. Lu Chuan began to test his abilities. Lu Chuan carefully examined the system menu. He realized he needed to try something. The main character saw an image of Yan Shi on the monitor. He decided to call himself a puppet. A girl in a bunny costume appeared in front of the guy. She had a whip in her hands. After that, an image of a demonic gaming girl appeared. The main character noticed a girl in front of him in the form of a caring school teacher. Lu Chuan was very surprised and confused. He did not understand what had happened to the system. Lu Chuan thought to himself that during the battle he could not be distracted. The guy decided to use the ship. The ship was floating in the air. Elder Yu told herself that she did not know why the main character attracted her student, but she liked it. The girl decided that she would not need to take care of her pupil and her boyfriend. Elder Yu hit her hand with her fan. She decided that she could go too.